I've been an absolute psychopath for a long time.
Every producer wants to know how to make it, and it seems like you have all of the answers.
Most things that hold people back are themselves. But if you're a little bit of a completely delusional person, you're going to go real far.
What made you not give up after that had happened?
The managers are the Jedis of the music industry.
Yeah.
We're going to work our tails off and we're going to be the biggest DJs in the world one day. And I was like, I want to be the biggest manager in the world one day, so let's fucking go!
What is up, everybody? My name is Parker Ament.
My name is Danny Ferrari.
And we are XLNT Sound. Today, welcome back to another episode of The XLNT Show. We have a very special guest with us. He is not an artist. He is not a producer. Nope. He is something even better, which makes this episode, it makes this episode the first of all time. We have Will Runzel, co-founder of Prodigy Management.
Prodigy Artists.
Prodigy Artists.
Incredible name in the industry. Yeah. I've known about you for a very long time. Hopefully people at home, if you are trying to make it in the EDM industry, you definitely need to know about Will Runzel and Prodigy Artists, obviously. So
yeah,
Prodigy.
Tell
them a little bit more about it.
Yeah, Prodigy has artists like Nghtmre, Slander, Audion, Valentino Khan, amongst others, demo tapes, right?
Absolutely.
We are so hyped to have you here, man. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so hyped I feel totally honored to be your first industry guest. I've been a fan of the show.
Thank you,
when
man.
I first called you guys, I said long time listener, first time caller. So here I am. I'm calling into the show.
So awesome, man. Yeah, we really wanted to make this episode special for people because every producer wants to know how to make it, and it seems like you have all of the answers.
Yeah, you're pretty responsible for some real big names, and we're not just talking about like people that you talk about managing like Nghtmre and like Slander, names like that. It's like you started with those guys. It's not like you just picked them up after. Like you are very responsible, obviously with your partner Steven and obviously the guys themselves. But you're a big part of that story, and I think that's really important for the people at home to kind of hear that type of stuff and how to actually learn from that.
Oh yeah, they were fresh out of Icon Collective.
That's so cool, man. I mean.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've had an actual industry person, and we've been trying really hard to try to get. It's funny because you literally called at the perfect time when you hit us up, because we were like, dude, we should get on an industry person, and we're like, well, who would be the right person? And then it just like stars aligned, and so we're super stoked to have you here and be able to ask you a lot of questions, because I think the first thing is let's let the people know as far as where you come from and how you kind of started doing what you did. Maybe a little bit of backstory. I know we don't want to get too deep into it.
We can get into it.
But you're a fucking hustler.
Yeah. So I grew up in Evanston, Illinois, which is the first suburb north of Chicago. But when you kind of cross over Howard Street, it's very much the same. Super diverse high school neighborhood. Grew up listening to rap music mostly. I was a hustler from a young age. I committed crimes to make money when I was a young man, just because I wanted to take girls on dates, basically.
Nice.
So, my dad always basically told me since I was in third grade, better to have your own taco shop than to work for somebody else. And so, I was always kind of doing that. And I graduated from Evanston, 3-sport athlete, got good grades, was absolutely a troublemaker, always, getting run-ins with the police, and but was always on top of everything else as well. So I went to Indiana University. I was in the business school for a semester, couldn't pass business calc. That was out of it. That kicked me out of, took me out of business school. And I wanted to be, so I was really big in sports. So I did sports telecom, and I was on the radio shows and helping produce and star in the TV show, the college sanctioned television shows. And I would call anything from girls soccer to, the Michigan IU game, basketball game, football game, whatever I could get my hands on. And then I moved to Italy to study abroad.
So sick.
And while I was there, my dad's a real lunch pail guy, and
blue collar, is
just very work hard and don't ask me for shit type of kind of guy. And So I moved to Florence, and within like 2 weeks, I ran out of money, and he was giving me money, you know. But I think it was like $600 a week. Drinks were like 14 euros. The exchange rate was double, so or half. So it was a $12 drink's a $24 drink, you know. That's
Priorities. Drinks
when you're in
first.
college. That's
what year was this?
2007. So that's what you know.
Oh, wow.
When you're thinking of currency exchanges, you're thinking of how much does a beer cost.
Yeah.
So I would go to the parties, and I would buy one drink, and then all of my roommates were these like very wealthy like Long Island kids, and they would like buy tables and like pop Xanax and do cocaine and all that stuff, and I would just sit there and just buy one drink and like nurse it all night. But I would hang with them, you know. And so I remember one of the guys going up to this guy we didn't know. And I was like, I literally walked up to him and I said, yo, there's like 100 chicks here. Like, why are you talking to this like random dude? Because you're in your like wolf pack of bros, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it ended up being Tyler Poggi. Shout out Tyler, still my homie to this day. And maybe 2 nights later, he walked up to me and he's like, bro, so like, what's your fucking deal? Like, you don't drink or something? You don't party? Like, and I was like, bro, I'm poor. And he was like, all right, so listen, like, I can tell you're, you know, I at the time I was like pretty much like all in, you know, thrift store outfits, but I was dressing wild and I was really inspired. I have Italian heritage. My mom was like, go be different. I would wear like bright purple shoes and like,
hell yeah.
You know, I was just, you know, like crazy sport coats with like flowers all over them. I was just wilding out, stuff I wouldn't normally wear. And, he was like, look, he took me to the after hours club. It's called Blob. It held like 30 people.
Blob?
Called Blob. And it still exists to the day. They've kind of like commodified it. But you'd literally be in there with like the politicians and the runway models. And I was just like this is a totally different, like the elite of like Florence, right? And, you know, then they would always play darts. So we were sitting in there playing darts and they were just like, look, smoking cigs, you know, at 24. They were like, look, listen. You drag the chicks to the club, you sell tables for us, we'll give you a piece of the tables and we'll give you 200 euros a week, and you'll get free drinks everywhere you go, and you'll get free drinks even at the clubs that you don't work at, because they'll just want to bring you there because they know that you're connected. That was all I needed to make ends meet. I was like, cool, I'm making 800 euros a month and I'm getting free drinks everywhere, and you know, even restaurants. It's just like club promoter culture now. Like even restaurants would invite you, you'd bring some friends, you know, you blah, 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 blah. So yeah, that was where I got started as like a promoter. And then I basically lived there all summer and told my mom like, yo, I'm not going back to college. I love it here. I'm never fucking leaving. And she was like, I'll kick your ass. And my mother's a very strong, she could kick my ass. So I went back to Indiana and I graduated. And towards the end of Indiana, I basically had this like major that didn't mean anything because I wanted to be in music now. And I also had like a pretty extensive arrest record from like since I was a kid throughout college, kept getting in trouble, kept doing stupid shit. And so I was like, fuck it. So I threw a party on Fridays in Indiana, and it was like electronic music, and they were doing hip hop and country music, and $5 beers was like the attraction. Then I was bringing like, you know, local electronic DJs, but it was an electronic night. So like all the New York kids would show up. Anyone who was into house music would show up. And
so wait, how are you getting these people?
Yeah,
because it sounds like you just became this insane promoter.
Okay, so I'm so used to telling this story so fast.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, we've got 2 hours.
We do. We got time.
Let me take my time. All right. So
how did you get the Italian chicks?
Okay.
I
didn't. I was all Americans. It was all Americans.
Okay.
All right. So hold on. Let's back this up. There's a really important part that I always skip over because I'm used to telling the abridged version. So what I tried to start first was an agency, and it was called Fifth Agency. I'm William Lewis Runzel the Fifth. That's literally the tattoo on my wrist.
Oh, sick.
Dope.
And so I signed like all the local DJs and bands that were like in my college that I thought were good. I was like scouting them, blah, 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 whatever. I went to Indianapolis and like, cause I was in Bloomington, and I filed my LLC and I got the paperwork when I was like 21, and I fucking just convinced these kids that I would get them gigs or whatever.
Yeah.
And so after I signed these kids, I went nightclub to nightclub on like the Strip in Bloomington, Indiana, and tried to pitch them, you know. And I think the first person that I got was like, or gig that I booked was like $500 for like a Halloween party or something. And this guy, Dan Coleman, shout out Dan, he sat down and like kind of like got to know me. And I told him about my experience in Italy, and he said, basically on Fridays, like Saturdays, we have like it was like a hip hop night or something, like we do good, but we can, and they were like kind of, it was Jake's nightclub there on the end of the strip. And he basically said like, look, I cannot get people in here on Fridays. I've worked in Bloomington for 10 years. I just, Kilroy's in all these other bars are like a little bit more famous. And he was like, yo, I just can't figure it out. And I was like, oh, all right, well, I'll bring, and then I was thinking, oh, I'll bring like my clients to DJ. So, and then I'll start it up. So what did I do? I did everything that we learned in Florence. I printed out flyers and I had drink tickets, and, we did like Facebook invites and stuff like that.
Cool.
So the first week, the party was actually on Saturday. The first party that we ever did, the University of Wisconsin was in town for a football game. So we passed out flyers at the tailgate, and like 30% of the crowd was like drunk Wisconsin kids who were like, I drove 9 hours to like party here. I'm not going to go to sleep. And like most kids would like just pass out at, after the game and not be there. But like, and then the Wisconsin kids typically had Indiana friends that they were visiting because, wherever they were from, typically the Midwest, blah, blah, blah. So fucking 1,100 kids showed up and paid $5 to get in, and then we had electronic music there, and then like word just spread, like that's where you go to fucking rave basically on Saturdays. And I would just walk home with like $2,300 and $5, because my deal with him was like, I take the door and you take the bar, and I would just walk home with like $2,500 in my fucking jeans, literally $5 bills like falling out of my jeans. And I remember calling my dad and going, this is what I'm going to do for a living. And him going, chill out, man. and I was like, no, cool. So I did that for like 6 months. And then they came to me and they said, we want to give you a flat rate, and you don't get the door anymore.
So they were trying to negotiate. You were the one who brought the people.
They weren't trying to negotiate. They were trying to fuck me.
Yeah.
And they did.
Because they had this spot.
Strong
now they
arms
know
you.
people are going there.
And they did. And they did. So, I told my dad, so then I said, all right, I'm not going to promote it this week and see what the fuck happens. And I didn't promote it that week, and everybody still showed up anyway.
Yeah.
No one
You
gave
had
a
already
fuck.
created the
I
buzz.
created a culture.
Yeah.
I created a
monster.
one-of-a-kind party in 2007 when no one was listening to electronic music, right?
You can't really hold your cards
So
that long in that industry.
And I didn't have a contract, and I was a kid. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. And then Russell Marcus. Shout out Russell. I feel so blessed because almost every name I'm going to drop right now is still my friend to this day.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
So shout out Russell. He was a fraternity kid at AE Pi, and he sat me down and he said, the fraternity has these relationships with agencies because we've been spending our frat money to like book people in our basement and blah 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 blah. But like, let's do it and make some money. And I was a senior at that point, and I was like, all right, well, we can rent out Jake's for this, even though they screwed me. I know we could, I forgot what it was, but, I have a relationship there, and we can book people and throw concerts there. And he was like, let's book Mike Posner. I didn't know who Mike Posner was at the time. He was a sophomore at Duke, but all of his mixtapes with Big Sean were out. And I listened to it, and I was like, oh my God, the fraternity kids are gonna fucking love this. Like, this is a joke. And I wasn't in a fraternity, but I just, I knew
the culture.
Exactly. And I was like, look, if we're gonna do this here, we should also do this at the University of Wisconsin. We should do this at the University of Ann Arbor. We should do this in Champaign, Illinois. And so we did, and we gave I basically took weed money, and that was my deposit. Russell got some money from his grandma, and that was like our deposit for Mike Posner, and we made like fucking $30,000.
Damn.
And I was like,
at 21,
and I called my dad, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do for a living, and he was like, chill out, bro.
Oh, still.
And then we fucking booked Big Sean, and we lost all the money. Because Sean wouldn't approve the flyers in time, and blah, 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 blah. So, shout out my dad. This guy, he gets it. He's an entrepreneur himself, but he just, he's always just trying to temper my expectations because I call him all excited and blah, blah. So after that, I extended it to like 7 networks or 7 cities. We did Kansas, we did Kent State, Ohio, and Zach Rubin, who's now the co-founder of Breakaway, Tyler Poggi introduced us so we could start working together. We basically built the backbone of what Breakaways can be. And, you know, it was really Zach and Adam, but I was kind of their right-hand guy who was like running all the promotions, and I ran out of money and they were funding the stuff. So we did like Jeremiah, we did Big Sean, we did Twista, we did Sammy Adams, and, you know, just like college-friendly stuff. And I ended up, I think I almost had like 9 markets at one point. And to do that, I had, you know, I built all these PDFs and I had all these like training programs and all this stuff. And I moved to Chicago, and I actually, we booked a club, we booked a show at Enclave. We did Chicago as well. And the director of marketing was a young woman that I met that I ended up dating, and we broke up in the middle. And that's now my wife, who I have a child with.
Shout out your wife.
Shout out Jessie.
Shout out
and
Jesse.
I met her at the beginning of this story, so
that's cool.
she watched me, you know, go from 0 to what I am now. And you know, we broke up in the middle, but has always been like super supportive of everything that I've ever done. And the last tour I did was with Steve Aoki. I had no idea who he was. I didn't listen to electronic music past Daft Punk and Deadmau5. And we were in Iowa City, and the last night of the tour, Steve goes, "So who put this together?" And I was like, "I've been on a tour bus with you for like basically 2 weeks, buddy."
Yeah.
And I was like, "It's me, it's me." And he was like, and he's like, "How old are you?" And I was like, "I'm 24." And he's like, "I'm very, very impressed with this. Would you like to come run my DimMock events in Los Angeles?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yeah, dude, like, what's the pay?" And he was like, No, you don't get paid. He's like,
What?
He's like, you got to start it as an intern. He was like, every single person who's ever worked at DimMock was an intern. You're not gonna skip the line,
Even
But
after all of that
even
run.
after all that. But he was like, "But I've like handpicked you, so like you don't need to worry. Once your internship's
Right.
over, you're gonna get the job."
Sorry, can I take
Yeah.
a quick pause real
Sure.
quick? So there's 2 things that came up. First off, what year is this Steve Aoki tour happened? What year was it?
2010.
So right before the giant explosion of EDM in America, right?
Yes.
So before that, you had mentioned that you had a super successful night with Mike Posner, and you made $30K, right?
Mhm.
And then the very next thing that you did was with Big Sean. Is that what
Yeah.
you said? And then you lost all of that money.
No, like 70% of it.
Okay,
Most
so
of it.
and your dad said, "Well, listen, dude, chill out. Like you're gonna have wins, but you're gonna have losses too."
Yeah.
So at that point, right? That's such a big that's not just like that's such a big win and then followed by a big loss, right? So I'm kind of curious, like, what made you not give up after that had happened? Like, what told you, like, oh, like, because I would imagine, like,
I was having a fucking blast.
I'm winning. Like, were you convinced? Like, was that like a big shock? Like, oh shit! Like, actually, I can lose, and I can lose really big at this. Like, what was that feeling like, and what made you continue to keep going?
I was having a blast.
Okay,
I was
so you were like
working with artists. I was basically a college kid throwing like, you know, concerts with the most popular artists in all like D and C like C and D markets. Like Live Nation wasn't really my competitor. I was like competing with like the local bar in town. So, you know, I got to be like the man for a night in Champaign, Illinois. And I was such a goofball back then. I would MC the shows too. So I'd be like, "Yo, everyone put your hands together for Big Sean. Let's go." You
Nice.
know. Just I feel like every college promoter like does that. They just want the stardom, and I was no different. And I absolutely, you know.
So the passion was the
Yeah,
passion
it was
for
the passion, and I also was like, you know, no backup plan. you
Right,
know?
you're like, this has to work.
I was like, what am I gonna go do? I'm gonna go back on my like, oh, I want to be on ESPN plan after I've taken a couple year hiatus, or even just a 6-month hiatus or whatever, which I could have done, and I just did not. Applying for jobs, if they were gonna do a background check on me, was probably wasn't gonna happen for me.
Right.
So I had no choice but to do like entrepreneurship, music entrepreneurship. It was fun. That business, I could have even kept doing that business to some extent, but it just was so volatile and honestly terrifying that I literally took an unpaid internship
Right.
as opposed to keeping that business going.
But also, like, at the same time, and I'm just, you're kind of like, you're like, yeah, I just, like, I had to do it. But, like, I'm kind of, like, recognizing that as, like, I think that's, like, takes a certain type of person to not just kind of put their tail between their legs and just, like, you know what I mean?
I've been an absolute psychopath for a long time.
You and I'm sharing this because I think it's important for people at home to, like, kind of realize it's, like, you're going to, I mean, that's a, and I know, like, to you, you're like, oh, yeah, but that's a big fucking loss, bro. Because, like, I'm not trying to, like, get into my shit, but, like, I remember when I was a kid, I had gotten a little bit of money when I graduated high school from, like, my grandpa. I bought a computer, and then I bought tickets to a concert that I thought was going to sell out, and it did sell out, and then I sold the tickets on eBay. That was, like, trying to be an entrepreneur. And then the very next time I did the same thing, and I bought more tickets, right? And I did the same thing.
Yep.
And what happened? It didn't sell out. So what did I do? I took all my friends to the concert. We had a good time, and I never fucking did it again. You know what I'm saying? And granted, I still, you know, found my entrepreneurship in another way, but I'm saying that was like a couple grand, you know, like $30,000 fucking dollars to have a win like that at that age, and then just to be like, oh shit, like, I just lost all that in one night, and not, like, fucking call it quits or just be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna make it work. Like, that says something about you as a person. And I think just, like, for people, I mean, it sounds like the passion is really what drove you, and also too, like, the feeling like you didn't really have any other choice, which I think is also, like, pretty fucking incredible that you were able to do that. You know what I mean?
I mean, you were having a blast, right?
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
so
you
much
didn't
fun.
you probably didn't even care about the money, right?
No, well, when I won the money, or when I made the money,
it's like you won.
when I made the money, I actually, at the end of the tour with Mike, I went. It was when the New Orleans Saints won the Super Bowl, and my little brother was at Tulane was at Loyola of New Orleans at the time. So I actually went to Mardi Gras and, like, spent $5,000 like partying my ass off.
Sick.
And then I was like, all right, cool, we got, like, Big Sean next month, and and I literally went to Kansas and slept on my buddy Brett's couch. Shout out Brett, who I went to high school with, and in the Big Sean show was doing the worst there, and I, like, physically went to a city, a 9-hour drive away, and, like, passed out flyers for, like, a week straight. And, like, I mean, I was going after it.
That's so cool, man. All right, so I wanted to, like, kind of, like, just take it quick, like, cause
the self-determination gets even crazier after this, frankly.
So, let's jump back into
so you're back
Dim
into
Mak.
Steve Aoki,
So Aoki's like, come get this internship, but, like, you'll get the job, right? And he was like, how soon can you be in Los Angeles? I was like, when do you need me in Los Angeles? And he was like, now. And I was like, 4 days? 2 days to pack, 2 days to drive there? He was like, cool, I'll see you in 4 days.
Damn.
So I literally looked at Jessie. I gave her a kiss on the cheek, and I said, come visit me if you want. I got to do this. I'll see you later. Our relationship's on hold, or we can stay together, whatever it is. Doesn't matter to me. I got to do this.
Damn.
And
Huge.
and I literally made flashcards, and I literally learned every single album Dim Mak put out. I Facebook stalked. Here's some tips, by the way, if you want to get in the industry or literally any job at all. I Facebooked, because there's no Instagram, then I Facebook stalked every single person who I could figure out worked there. I studied every single album. I listened to every single album. I looked up every single band. I looked up everything Steve Aoki had done his entire life. I read every single interview he had ever done. I went to all their party flyers. I memorized every single party that they had ever done. I watched every single video on their YouTube, and I made about 1,000 flashcards with pieces of information and by the time I was done making the flashcards, I didn't even have time to really learn them. So while I was driving and Jessie drove me to LA, God bless her, and we did stay together, and I literally, she would never let me do this now with the kid in the car and all that, but I literally was on the highway driving to LA reading the flashcards while I was, like, on the highway. And I remember my buddy Neo from Chicago, who I've known since then. Before I left, I had them, like, a little bit, and I remember him getting into my car to hang out, and there was all these flashcards on the floor, and he was like, he started looking at them, and he was like, oh, you're trying to get prepared, huh? And I was like, bro, I can't lose. Like, losing is, like, not an option. So I showed up on Monday, and I knew everything about the company, and everybody thought I was so fucking weird.
Yeah, they're like, you're fucking psycho.
They were like, this dude is a fucking psycho. Like, this is nuts. And I would just like look at all the posters on the wall, and I knew what everything was, and I'd walk up to people and go, "Hi, Brian," and he'd be like, "How the fuck do you know who I am?" And so the first 2 days, other than knowing everything about the company, I was kind of quiet. And then on Wednesday, they were showing me all the marketing and all the events, and I noticed that like they were booking an act like 4 or 5 days before the event, and they were like just getting the promotion going. And I literally was like, "Yo, you guys are like doing this all wrong." And they literally were like, "What the fuck is your name? Like, who the fuck are you?" And I literally was like, I was so prepared. I literally took out of 42 pages of PDFs that I had all switched my old logo and put the Nghtmre logo on. And I was like, this is your marketing.
This is your playbook.
This is your marketing playbook for everything that they want to do. And by Friday, I was in charge of marketing. And after, so then I'm implementing all that stuff, and they're still booking artists like 4 or 5 days before. And I was like, guys, I booked like 50 rap concerts. Like, let me give it a shot. And they were like, all right, fine, fuck it. And shout out Brad Owen from the team. He was the first guy to book a dance show with me. I actually ended up booking Digitalism with him in Chicago for an after party. That was our first show, so he had a little bit of faith in me. And then for Nghtmre Tuesdays, my first bookings were the Juan McLean and the Hood Internet, which were acts that Brad was probably having trouble booking at the time. They did not fit the sound whatsoever, and they totally fucking flopped. And I went from being like the hot shot to like, what are we doing? Why do we give this kids the rein? He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's not from California. But he doesn't know what this culture is.
Did people go to the show?
Yeah,
and
like
it
80.
just was like not a good show? Or?
Yeah, like 80. Well, we lost money because I had to pay them,
okay.
And like 80 or 90 people paid tickets to show up, but like not really. And Eric Vogel, shout out Eric Vogel. He was, he's a big manager now as well. I basically would sit down with him, and he was from LA, and he would just download me and just tell me like, yo, this is who's hot. This is who you should be listening to. These are the sound, electro was really big then. And, dubstep was kind of in its infancy, but like picking stuff up. And with Nghtmre, we had carte blanche to like book pretty much any. There was a pocket. So the Hood Internet was like mashups, and the Juan McLean was disco. Those were two things that like weren't in the pocket, frankly. But electro was, and dubstep was, and house was, and techno was, and all that stuff. And I just sat in my fucking tiny $500 a month bachelor, didn't even have a fucking kitchen, was smaller than a studio, and I frankly just put my headphones on for hours at a time, and I just was on YouTube. That was kind of the streaming service at the time, and I just listened to music. And this was at a time where the reason why Steve brought me in is because Nghtmre Tuesdays and Nghtmre Sundays was also booking was at like an all-time low, because Steve had just 2 years prior to that booked Kanye and Lady Gaga and Daft Punk and all that stuff, and then Steve blew up, so he went on the road. And there was other guys running it, and it just kind of like fell off. And then I came in, and I booked Zed's first show. I booked Dylan Francis. I booked Flostradamus.
Wow.
I booked The Magician's first LA show. And we just had this like absolute renaissance. And like every Tuesday and every Sunday was sold out. And then I was the fucking, I went from the failure to I was like, I was kind of the golden boy at that point. And then, I was beating up Gary from Hard and Pasquale at Insomniac, and I was beating them to talent because we had a decent budget, but it was on Tuesdays. So guys are like, oh, dude, no one's pick up money on a Tuesday. It's kind of like free money, And then it was also like culturally relevant and all that stuff. So I worked there for a year. Leanne.
Quick question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question. So it sounds like you're a monster preparer. Like you go insane with preparation before going in. What was that big difference that you brought to DimMac? You said, "Oh, they're only promoting it for 4 or 5 days before the show." What did you do?
We turned it into like a hard ticket venue. So we would announce the shows 2 months in advance, and we would put tickets on sale, and we'd have pre-sale tickets, and we'd run pre-sales, and basically like the modern marketing that we do today, we did it then instead of just making it like a nightclub event where, you know, like one event ends and then they like start promoting like the next week. So, you know, we'd go into, you know, we do 180 tickets on pre-sale, and we go, oh, you know, and we look at the analytics and go, oh, you know, this is going to be a good show in a couple months, and blah, 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 whatever it was. And, you know, Steve was nice enough to give me a salary and then, you know, a percentage of the events and all that stuff. And I really had like ownership, and I basically went from intern to the head of Dimlock Live in like 65 days or something like that.
That's so
and,
sick.
You know, it was a smaller company, so it wasn't like I climbed Microsoft or anything like that. And I showed up completely over prepared, and I don't think people frankly really liked me that much when I was there, because I immediately like skipped ahead of like a bunch of people, and you know, I didn't really care either. I was there to make the thing a success. I was there to shift culture, and you know, at the same time, I think people will say about me that I was much more of a dickhead and cocky back then, and I'm much more humble now. So I'm sure it got to my head like a little bit, but I definitely tried my best to be like humble and treat everybody with respect. And you know, you're not doing. It's a team effort. You're not doing great with teams if you're a jerk, you know. And yeah, I was having the time of my life.
But you went in there to be like, okay, well, like I'm gonna make this work. And,
I came in there to do exactly that.
Right.
That is what Steve wanted me to do. You know, if I'm saying I went from 0 to that, it was kind of like that was also the expectation of me.
Sure.
He wasn't having me come in to like, you know, be an employee there. Yeah. He was having me come in to run the show, and that's what I ended up doing.
And also too, like for people that, I mean, I think people do know about the history of just like, because there is history in this time period, right? Because especially out in Los Angeles, DimMac Tuesday was an event, and what was interesting about it was the fact that it was on Tuesday. Right? Because most people are going out on the weekends because they got work. But somehow you were able to create buzz around a Tuesday night, a work day.
It was different back then. There was a party on every night of the week back then.
Yes, but the EDM culture was like, it was buzzing, it was booming. Because I remember that time. It was very, very exciting time.
Let's put it this way. It was such a big cultural movement that Lee Anderson came up with the idea, his Skrillex's agent, to come up with 6 nights of Skrillex, almost like a Christmas event. And the first show that he did on the 6 nights of Skrillex, he ended in the biggest venue. He did Tuesday with us.
Nice. Wow.
Lee called me and said, you know, I'm going to book Skrillex for you for X amount of dollars, very low fee. I almost did a fucking backflip.
Wow.
And then Skrillex is such a G. He just took the money and just brought bigger speakers and brought more production into the room.
He made it big,
and but I mean, it was big. It was a 330 cap room. It was not big, and we put like 700 people there that night. I'm sure that I'm now confessing more illegal things that we did, but I mean, it was so wild. I remember literally looking at my cell phone like this, and the sweat would drip off, and so I'd have to look at my cell phone like this because if I just looked down, it would just. I mean, it was the most insane night of that like era for me.
So what was like the big thing that you learned from Lee? I mean, he was booking strictly for Skrillex at that time?
No, he was at AM only. He was like he is right now. He was, you know, the biggest agent in the world.
This
in
is
North
Scary
America.
Monsters Skrillex, right? This is
like Scary
right at the
Monsters
peak of it.
Skrillex. Yeah, 100%.
So did you what did you learn? Was there something that you like took from him because
I didn't work with Lee like close enough to like learn from him. I think he always kind of had my back, which was great. I think what I, learned from Skrillex is like, from Lee is like the 6 nights of Skrillex is like being super creative and not just sticking your artist in like the venue that is, the venue that you're supposed to go to. But I didn't learn that because like Lee taught it to me. I learned that from observing Lee more than anything. You know? Most of our interactions were like via email, a couple phone calls here and there. But the way the story continues is Lee called Lucas King, who owns North Coast Music Festival, and said, Lucas called him and said, hey, look, we're opening a nightclub on the West Coast. We need someone to run it. And Lee said, oh, you should call this kid Will Runzel. He's really, really, really sharp and really poor, because I wasn't getting paid that well at the time. I was like, thanks for the negotiating position, Lee. But to have Lee Anderson, the absolute gargantuan in the industry to this day, kind of get me my first like well-paying job.
Cosign too, right?
Yeah, cosign is like pretty insane. Shout out Lee. And so I met with Lucas and his partner Jeff at the time, and they took me out to dinner, and I wooed them, and they offered me like honestly what I thought was an absolutely insane salary at the time, and then I asked for more, and they were like, "Dude, don't you make like nothing right now?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "So what do you need more for?" I was like, "You literally are bringing me into this job to negotiate as a talent buyer.
I'm not gonna
You think I'm not going to negotiate with
Yeah.
you?" And they like looked at each other and they laughed, and they were like, in 5 seconds, they were like, "All right, cool, we'll give you that."
Nice.
And then my first show was Calvin. The first show we booked was Calvin Harris.
Wow.
So now I went from
dude.
having like $7,000 budgets to having like infinity budget. And Calvin Harris was the first show. Alesso was the second show. Started booking Little John. This was at Lure, literally 2 blocks down the street from here. And so, on Thursdays, again, different time period. We had a insane 2,000 capacity, people spending 15 grand on tables on a Thursday night in LA. We booked Calvin, Alesso, Dimmy and Mike, like literally fucking everybody. It was totally insane. And, again, beating out the Hard and Insomniac at the time, just being like the little engine that could with a huge fucking pocketbook. And, Lucas is an impresario. So at one point in time, he just was like, "All right, you got this under control now." And he helped us secure Calvin. But past that, I was basically doing everything, And so, we'd have like Adrian Grenier and Mel Gibson and Paris Hilton at the club, and then also booking like the biggest DJs in the world. So I'm running around the back, I'm getting people drinks, I'm making sure the artists are all good, I'm booking all the talent, and I also convinced them. I was like, "Look, we're going to have to do like, they were doing like nightclub style where you like promote, what we were doing in Italy, promoter dragging chicks to the club and selling tables." And I was like, "Guys, we got to sell tickets." So I set up that whole like marketing structure for them as well. And then on Fridays, we weren't really doing anything, and there was all these other bottle service clubs that were like ultra competitive, and we had this beautiful outdoor space. And I was like, "Look, let me book like what I like on Fridays." And they were like, "What budget?" I was like, "Give me 15 to 20,000 a night, and we are gonna." And I told them, I looked them right in the eyes. I was like, "We're gonna be in the LA Times. We're gonna be, we're gonna be in the LA Times. We're gonna be in LA Weekly. We're gonna be in every major newspaper if you let me do this." And they were like,
"Those are some big promises, bud."
They were like, "Yeah, right." And I was like, "Cool." I was like, "Trust me." And I forgot who we opened up with, but we ended up booking M83, Jamie XX, Bag Raiders, Flight Facilities, like all the fucking cool disco shit. And we damn sure made the fucking LA Times. It said Amoeba Music puts Coachella-style electronic lineup. I'm sorry, Lure Hollywood puts electronic-style Coachella lineup behind Amoeba Music every Friday. And it was the old, I don't think Amoeba's still there, but it was behind Amoeba at the time. And my name's in it. You can look it up. It's on the LA Times website right now. And then after that, I was like pretty much household name in the event space in Los Angeles. And from there, my first client was Bixel Boys. Shout out Ian and Rob. And they had this T-shirt. They were co-promoters. Well, Rob was a producer, but Ian was a co-promoter, and also opening DJ or support DJ on the private label nights. That's what it was called. I did it with Matt Goldman, who was doing who's always been a mover and shaker as well, and they were my first act, and they had this. I don't know if you guys remember the Free Life T-shirt brand. Yep. So we developed that. I thought their music was really good, but it didn't get like crazy recognition. But we blew them the fuck up off these T-shirts because I knew Skrillex and I knew Dimmy and Mike and I knew RL. I had booked RL late. I think we booked RL multiple of the Dim.
Clockwork.
Yeah, I booked him at Clockwork at Indiana, and I didn't even tell you that part of the story. All right, hold on, pause. Let's go back to college.
Yes.
So
take us back.
When I was in college and I was throwing that party, they had like a hip hop night that was like mostly African Americans on. I don't know what day of the week it was on. And his managers, his same managers to this day, they were like, yo, Will, like, we need a booking for Clockwork. And I was like, I like, you know, I only have like a rap night. And they were like, that's fine. And Henry showed up there and just fucking ripped it as Clockwork. It was insane.
Did he play? Was he playing
He
trap
played
at that time?
hip hop. No, he just played rap music. I mean, we came up together, you know, Ben Piersky and those guys and Mason, and you know, no one knew what they were doing at this point. So, but he just knew how to read a fucking room. Right. You know, he was trying to go on tour as Clockwork, Clockwork was house. Clockwork wasn't trap.
It was sick. It was sick, like electro.
Right, but he just got up there and was like, oh, wait, hold on. And he just played rap music for fucking 2 hours. So anyway, back to Fridays on the Patio. I gave the T-shirt to Skrillex and Martin Garrix, and they fucking wore the Free Life T-shirt for like a week. I gave it to them, and they were like, "This is actually sick," and they just put it on. And Skrillex ended up signing a couple Bixel Boys tracks to Ausla.
Wow!
And Marty just thought it was sick. Skrillex and Martin both wore it so many days in a row, and I gave them one T-shirt, and me and Ian and Rob ended up looking at each other and going, is he washing that shirt?
Wow.
Like, it was insane. And they're like, we're watching him do like, you know, Ultra Music Festival and like, you know, going to Japan and doing Ultra Japan and like just like super on the live stream, all that shit. And so then we were like, and the thing was, we never sold them. So they were not available. So it was like, you're part of a clique, you're part of a group, you're part of the Free Life crew, right? So then we started doing these, do you want to join Team Free Life? And so people would submit, like, why do you want to join Team Free Life? And they were in it. You didn't have to be a music producer or anything. It was just like, have you done like something crazy in your life happen? And we had this kid Pontius from Germany who was like 17 years old and like overcame cancer. And like we had this girl who like grew up in the hood and she ended up being like a scholarship, like a soccer athlete. And we would put them basically on like baseball cards and then we would like post about them, blah, 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 blah. And then when we finally put them on sale, we did what's called like a thunderclap, I think, where basically you can opt in to automatically post something on your social media. And then we gave all the money. My mother passed away from cancer right around this time. And my sister was in this camp called Camp Kesem when she was at Berkeley, which was basically a free camp for kids who'd lost their parents to cancer. And so we did this thunderclap. We sold the T-shirt. We sold $60,000 worth of T-shirts in like 3 hours, and which is insane for not getting $1,000 a booking. We had just signed with Latney Hughes, who was at Windish at the time. He does like Flume now. I was also another awesome guy who's still crushing it in the agency world, and we just did these insane sales, and we gave all the money away and didn't make any money, and then you know all the like write-ups again and blah 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 blah. This kid Brendan Barrett at the time was managing Slander, and he got a job to work with Amy Thompson, who was managing the Swedes at the time, and she basically said, look, you can't bring Slander over here, like, you know, we don't want them, we just want you on this, you know, some small salary day-to-day management job. And he was just like impressed by me, and he basically gifted me Slander.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is before Icon, right? Before Slander went to Icon?
No, this is after they went to Icon.
This is
when
Icon.
Scott, Derek had already gone, and Scott was in the process of going.
Okay, can we take a quick pause real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry, I want to ask and rewind, because you said that you started after you did the lore stuff, then at some point you decided, well, let me actually try to manage somebody, right? Because you were doing the promotion. So obviously, I think if
this is great,
if you're a successful promoter, right, and you know how to get, like, because that's all it is. I mean, even with your like trying to be an artist, it's like, can you get people to listen to your music? Can you get people to give a shit? Can you get people to show up? Can you fill asses and seats? So you realize, I can get people to show up. I might as well sign an artist and try to see if I can get them some people to show up. So how did that happen? How did that situation happen?
I apologize, audience. I'm so used to telling this story in 5 minutes because it's like part of like a pitch to an artist, get to know me, blah, blah, blah. I'm like routinely, so thanks for keeping me focused.
That's what we're
here.
doing. Yeah. You're doing great. Don't worry.
So I was like, Ian and Rob, I love your music. I genuinely, absolutely adored their music. And I was like, I want to manage you guys. And they were like, what are you talking about, dude? You're a talent buyer. And I was like, all right. So I went back to my fucking roots and I made like, it was only 6 pages if I remember correctly. 6-page proposal, white manila folders. I told him I'll come to your studio and I'll tell you how. I'll tell you why. And I told him, this is all the stuff that I'm good at. This is all stuff I can get done for you right now. I left this part out of the story too, but alongside booking Lure, I was also booking all these little clubs in the Midwest and just kind of had like a side business and using the juju that I had with the agencies to like book stuff in Indianapolis and in Chicago and all this stuff. So I was like, look, I can put you on tour in like 4 or 5 different markets. I don't know that much about the music side. This is what I don't know, and I'll learn because I'm a fast learner. So I basically pitched them on like, hey, here's all the benefits of me branding and marketing and event side, and I'll get better at this. And they closed the manila folder, and they were like, yeah, dude, you're hired. And then we sold a bazillion T-shirts.
So that was like, it came from. I hear this, like, you weren't seeking out to be a manager, right? Like at that point you were enjoying what you were doing.
No, I was pretty bored, but yeah.
Okay, but so you saw something and then where there was a passion, you were like, I really love their music. I believe in them. I want to.
I just knew that being a talent buyer was going to not necessarily be like a dead end job, but I just remember booking like Gorgon City, for example, to like open, and then like a year later they like blew up, and the only power I had was to put them on my event. And I was like, I want to be part of this story.
Yeah.
I want to get them on the show, but then I want to be, everything in between. And that was what motivated me. Talent buying and marketing was a little bit too boring for me. It was something that I was immediately good at, and I could just rinse and repeat, and I could do it forever. And, what I didn't understand at the time is kind of owning IP. And I could have maybe started a private label records at the time. And there was a couple, I was talking to David Brady this weekend, and we were making jokes because he offered me a job to be an agent at Spin. I could have been an agent at one point in time.
Oh, crazy.
So, yeah, I mean, my life could have been, if I was a little bit, I had like mentors at the time, but I guess I didn't really have anybody like that. I was David Gordoni, shout out Gigi. I call him Godfather Gordoni. He was helping me a lot at the time, but more just like booking shows sort of stuff. And I just followed my passion at the end of the day, but I could have been Kristen All's part of this story is one of my best friends. He kind of, when I went into management heavy, he kind of took over a lot of my events roster. He turned that, I teamed him up with Lucas. They became Collective Presents, which owns North Coast now. Chris is basically the largest promoter in Latin music now. He owns Baja Beach Fest and Sueños in Chicago with his partner Aaron. And so, I could have been a little bit deeper part of those IPs, but I just was really passionate about management, and that's what I went into because I just wanted to be close to the artist. And that that's like phase 3 we're coming up on here.
Finally, somebody gets how to do hybrid trap. That's some real trap shit. That's what I'm talking about. I've been looking for trap flutes just like this. They layer together these sounds so well. That's so tough right there. Look at all these different macros they have too. I got so many ideas. Oh my God, they got the perk hand slappers. Oh my God, I can't believe that's coming from one preset. Hybrid trap is on a tear right now. Guys like Wink, Skrillex, and XOXO are really pushing the genre forward, and there's not a lot of preset companies out there that really understand where the sound is at. From all the different influences of bass music, to hybrid trap, to festival, everything is in this pack. 150 serum presets, you can't go wrong. Click the link in the description, grab yourself a pack, and let's make some hybrid trap.
So before you became a manager with that title, like I wanted to just kind of bring up some like talent buyer questions for you.
Yeah.
So you get a budget for a night or an event. How do you know what artists fit into your budget for that night? Like there's giant people like Calvin Harris, but then there's also like openers, and there's this like middle area. Like how do you know all of that?
How do you budget in all the crew, everything that you have to pay for? Because obviously the
Well,
fees, right? The booking fees. But there's so much
mainly
other shit.
I mainly wanted to know about the artists, the fees.
We can talk about
that
all
Okay.
of it. So the venue, just to answer your question simply, the venue is going to have a what's called a nut, where they know how much their stage hands are going to cost. They know how much it is to open the venue that night. So that's pretty. It's a multiple fixed expenses that becomes one kind of fixed expense, right? There's a resource called Polestar where it will show you all the hard ticket data. When I mean hard ticket data, how much did an artist sell at what ticket price in various markets. So that's one resource.
And that's online.
It's a subscription service that's quite expensive, but it's a talent buyer tool. When you're booking the openers, you pay them opener money. And you're negotiating with an agent who's also giving you a quote and saying, I need 20,000 for this. They ask for 20,000, they probably need 15,000. If you send them an offer for 8,000, you're probably not going to get the artist. So there's some empirical data. There's the agents quoting you on what their clients need.
Okay.
And then, if you're booking an opener and they don't have an agent or whatever, you're giving them $500 or $1,000 or something like that. And, sometimes if a up and coming act has a really powerful agent, but they're also rising, they might get $5,000 or $3,000 or whatever it may be. And, a budget also varies. A budget is also based off the gross potential. So the gross potential is basically the ticket prices multiplied by the number of tickets that you could potentially sell. So, and from there, that's attached to the fixed budget to open the nut, to open the door, and then that becomes what we would send, not for Lure, but for hard ticket venues, like if you're playing the Shrine, is a hard ticket offer sheet where you as the artist can literally see how much is going to the food in the backstage.
Yeah.
How much is going to the catering, how much is going to the laser beams, and if you want to bring in more than the house offers, which in venues like the Shrine and Palladium is very common. Sometimes there's also a production budget that the artist uses and says, oh, that's $30,000 in production, and the artist gets $30,000 in their fee, and we're going to spend, $18,000 on lasers, and we're going to spend $12,000 on CO2 and, extra sound or whatever. And the difference between soft ticket and hard ticket rooms, a soft ticket room is like a nightclub. They're making money off the bar and bottle service and all that stuff. And a hard ticket venues like the Palladium or the Shrine or, I don't know where I'm sure your listeners are based all over. Terminal 5 in New York City or, any stadium, any basketball stadium that Beyonce is playing or whatever is considered a hard ticket show.
So what like profit margins is there for these big venues? So
15%.
15% for Palladium.
Yeah.
And something smaller like Allure.
Right.
What would it would be the same?
No, because when we booked Calvin, Paris Hilton and a bunch of Saudi Arabian royalty rolled up and spent $180,000 in 45 minutes.
Jeez.
I think Calvin got paid $150 that night.
Oh my god.
So, like a great example of a soft ticket venue is like Marquee in Las Vegas or Omni in Las Vegas, and you might have a bonus, if you're a good manager or agent, you might have a bonus structure based on how well the bar does or the gross revenue bar plus ticket sales, etc. But generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, as a manager, when I'm looking at an offer, if it's a hard ticket offer, you're typically going to end up getting between 25 and 33% of the gross revenue, really the gross revenue after taxes. And when you're looking at a soft ticket venue and you're, a bass artist like some of my guys, you want to be around like 50 to 60%. And if you're, if your act sells tables, you want 100% of the door essentially, because which means that they're going to lose money on the ticket sales, but they're going to make it back at the bar.
Interesting. That's such a crazy dynamic.
Nothing I just said is an industry standard. Those are all that's my personal perception of how I've seen the numbers laid out over 15 years.
Yeah.
So you won't really read that in like a book or anything like that. which is why people come here, right?
That's
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, dude.
I'm very
But
curious.
if you do want a great book, Donald Passman's Everything You Need to Know About the Music Industry is what you need to read if you're listening to this and you want to get into the music industry right now. Go read. If people are about to start at Prodigy and they're like, "Oh, I start in 2 weeks," I'm like, "Cool, go read that whole book front to back."
Great suggestion. I
My
love
dad
that book.
told me to read that fucking book.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I read like a third of it,
will
and
now.
I go to different parts of it. But he's still putting stuff out. There's on like volume 7 or something,
Volume
right?
17.
Yeah, crazy.
That's crazy. I wanted to ask, like, one thing I feel like that a lot of people can probably relate to that are getting into the music business, and since we're talking about just say ticket sales and booking your first show or whatever, I think a big thing that happens with just people in general is fear of losing opportunity, and because of the fear of losing an opportunity, they won't negotiate. So when somebody like a new artist, let's say an opener, and you're talking to them and you're like, "Hey, cool, like I'm gonna have you, I'm gonna book you for this show or whatever, and you're gonna be an opener, right? And I'm gonna pay you $500, right? And let's say the person is Calvin Harris or something. Maybe that's too big, but maybe it's somebody around that time. For somebody that's new, that's trying to make a name for themselves, I know the mindset is oh my God, Will Runzel just offered me to open, and I'm going to be able to open for Calvin Harris. He's going to pay me $500, right? I'm going to say yes to no matter anything that I get offered because I just don't want to lose this opportunity. So there's like a lot of fear of losing the opportunity to play with Calvin Harris or to even get any money at all. Or, hey, I'm not going to pay you anything, but you get to open up for Calvin Harris. What kind of advice would you give for people that are just starting out, that are trying to make a name for themselves when they are given opportunities as far as their negotiation power?
97% of the time, the person's just going to come back to you and tell you what their max budget is, which might get you, a bigger offer. And 3% of the time, and it literally happened to me 2 months ago, it was like a big brand reached out to one of my clients, and they were like, "Oh, we have a small budget," and I saw the brand, and I was like, "Yeah, we need 20 grand," and they never replied. And you shoot your shot, and that was 3% of the time. That's pretty much the only time I can even recall it happening in the last 10 years, And also when people have emailed me or we've, said, "Hey, here's your support offer," and they ask for more money, we've never not responded to anybody. We respond every single time. And sometimes the response is, "There's no more money. Take it or leave it." That's totally fine.
But it doesn't make them look bad. I think that's like, do you get what I'm
It
saying?
depends. Yeah, it can. It depends.
So what is the
Okay,
what is
so
that?
like if you're, have you told tickets before? Everything's data, right? So they offer you $500. Okay, let's just break it down. They offer you $500 in Chicago, right? Have you headlined in Chicago? Because your rebuttal should be, actually, I need $1,500 because I played Spy Bar 6 months ago and I sold 37 tickets at $20, or some people who are doing events right now and they're literally the ones physically selling the tickets, right? That happens for young artists and they're playing their local bar in Tampa, and the business owner says, "Here's your 20 tickets, go sell them to your buddies," or whatever. I'm trying to break it down to like and so then you give them the data that you have, and you say, "I actually played Joey's bar in town, and we brought 70 people there, and they all paid $20 a ticket." So, you add that up, that's the gross revenue. Let's say it's $100 at $20 tickets. You made $2,000. We just talked about the other math there. It's a soft ticket show. You should be getting half of that. So they offered you $500, but you should be getting $1,000 because I sold $2,000 worth of tickets to my last show. That's
like proof.
Totally reasonable and total proof. Now, if you've never done a show in that market, maybe you're going to say, when I announced this show on my Instagram, 7,000 people liked it or whatever, Again, probably not too common. So most of the time when people are offering you money, it's what they think you're worth, number one. And yes, there's guys out there trying to, their job is to pay you as little as possible. Yeah. So you can always, I know people listening, you get all the time, "I'll play for exposure,"
right.
know, and, which isn't a bad idea sometimes too for the right thing. But yeah, generally speaking, you should have some sort of metric that is quantifiable if you're going to ask for more money. You shouldn't just, "Oh, we got an offer, let's just negotiate it just because." Even to this day, if we get an offer for, whatever it is, for a festival where the money's it's about you and 40 other acts.
Yeah.
So when a festival offers come in, I'll pretty much just almost always ask for like a couple more bucks, right?
Even if you already played it, like you're always say Nghtmre's EDC. It's like we played this for this much last year, and now he's this much bigger or whatever. Like,
you know what? Sometimes I say an offer seems really generous, and I just confirm it. Frankly,
yeah.
Okay. Generally, you ask for a couple more bucks, but when an offer comes in for, look, if it's a hard ticket show, I'm not asking for more money unless I want the ticket prices to go up. But sometimes I'll get an offer for a soft ticket nightclub, and I'll go, oh, this seems really great. And we just confirm it.
Right. So there shouldn't be because like I said, I think as like artists, not a lot of us are necessarily there's a lot of introvert artists. They don't want to do the business part, but sometimes they have to represent themselves. And I know because I've experienced it too in the very beginning even with Parker, this fear of I don't want to be annoying. Right. I don't want to ask for too much, but I also don't want to undervalue myself. Right.
Make an educated guess.
Yeah.
And when you're giving your, your counter argument, your rebuttal, give them data.
I like that.
Tell
Yeah.
them why.
Like this is having a reason why. At
Tell
least
them
that'll
why.
never make you look bad. Even they could still say no, but at least you say, well, we're really hoping to get $1,000.
They might literally say, we recognize that you're worth that, but it's not in the budget for this slot. You don't always get what you're worth,
So okay, on this
Sorry,
topic,
I wanted to because I feel like that's a thing that a lot of people.
It's
deal
so much great, so much better that you guys are breaking this up, or before I just don't drone on.
Yeah, it's working great.
You gave me way too long-ended. My life story is fucking long when you include all the damn details.
We're gonna take breaks.
No, that's great. The breaks are good. Otherwise, I just be.
Yeah, dude.
This is good.
So while we're talking about like the worth of an artist, like you just said, it's metrics. You're looking at the history. You're looking at what they did. 100%. You're looking online, social media. What are some artists right now that are out there that we would be surprised at that are getting huge budgets?
What do you mean by huge budgets? Like huge production budgets?
Like a booking fee, let's say.
Like huge booking fee?
Yeah, that we would be surprised at. Like,
I don't think anything's very surprising right now. I mean, the people like Disco Lines is on a tear, John Summit's on a tear, Nghtmre's on a tear. Those guys are getting really big fees,
Yeah.
Those seem kind of like the newer guys. I think everything, the big fees always tail end your hard ticket accomplishment, right? So, very rarely are guys just getting, money off the hype. It's very, very rare. They're typically doing the business, and when the festival comes around, you're getting paid off the data.
And then what about the legacy acts that are maybe not as relevant at the moment, but let's say they've been around for a long time, they have a really solid name, maybe they are just kind of cruising, or maybe that they can put asses in seats, but also at the same time they're not necessarily as hot as they first.
They're just getting paid off of how many butts they put in seats. Period.
So at that point,
that's
it's just
it.
Like ticket
Doesn't
sales.
matter. Yeah.
I don't care who you are, if you've done this or that. It's
like
what can you do right now?
to just answer that question for the audience, just go if you see a legacy act and it's the day before the show, or the day of the show, and there's still tickets available. Their money's probably going down on the next show. Because they didn't sell out that venue. You definitely want to sell out every show. If you're not selling out the show, your fees are probably going down.
Even if it's a smaller venue, rather book a smaller venue and have the opportunity to pack it than play a bigger one.
Then you can at least maybe call it an underplay and maintain your fee, but your fee's not going to go up playing smaller venues than last time.
Damn.
So if a show is not getting sold well, what are the excuses that we hear?
Yeah.
That
they're
for
lies.
shows to get
They're all
canceled?
lies.
I know, like,
They're all
I'm
lies.
sick.
Yes.
Mental health.
Sometimes people are sick for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are sick. I've had our clients like be deathly ill and not be able to make a show. But sometimes when the secret code word, sorry, all my artist friends and clients, the secret code word is extenuating circumstances.
Yeah,
Love it.
extenuating
Love
circumstances.
They say extenuating circumstances. That means you didn't sell enough tickets.
Yeah, because like
For
young
sure.
blood.
Guys get people get sick. for sure.
Yeah.
And to just talk about, the blue dot, what's it called? The blue dot theory or something like that. I keep seeing these influencers
Wait,
talking
what's
about
the blue dot theory?
It's like when they show you the stadium and there's all these blue dots because tickets didn't sell. Tickets are just priced too high. And I'll ask a question and answer it because I see what your guys flow right now, and it's really, really sharp. I love you guys, by the way. This is really great.
Great.
One thing that we're seeing is tickets not selling, and the why is because tickets are priced too high, period. And if you want to know who's responsible for that, it's both. It's the artist and Ticketmaster, and it's also just the economy. Because most of the time, even right now on some of the larger scale shows that we're doing, we're looking to the promoter and saying, what are other people like us? What are their ticket prices? What were our ticket prices last time? Has the market changed since then? And Live Nation is coming back to us and saying, this is where your ticket should be. Now, sometimes you have an agent and a promoter who think they're smarter than everybody, or they have the pressure from the artist because the artist has a crazy production they want to bring, so they want tickets to be $15 more so they can, bring that production, and that's a risk. And sometimes you get, the blue dots and people don't show up. So it's always a collaborative effort. There's no one to say, oh, Post Malone's tour and Youngblood's tour, they didn't sell out because the artist is the bad one. Oh, they didn't sell out because Live Nation's too greedy. No, it's a collaboration between both of them. And, most of the artists that are doing arenas right now did arenas before. It's very hard to look at your artist and then Live Nation even wants to come to you and they want to make money with you. Live Nation very rarely looks at you and says, oh, you did arenas last tour. You can't do arenas this time. Because, and the flip side of the politics of that is because a lot of times they own these arenas and they just want to make sure that they're in their arena. So even though a non-sellout hurts the artist, Live Nation might look at its back end and go, it's okay if we put X artist in there and they only do 70% sold because we want that Wednesday in December around Christmas filled and we get a bigger ticket rebate and the drinks will, blah, 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 blah. And our staff, all of the people who work there, they're going to get paid. Or if these people are on salary and it doesn't matter how many events they work a year, we're going to, that's going to be better use of our time or of our budget or whatever it may be. So that's where you kind of get into the nuances of how we end up with this blue dot Nghtmre or whatever. I forgot. We're getting the name wrong, but
blue dot theory.
Yeah.
No, that's not. It's something else. Blue dot something else. Blue dot something or other, which just means that tickets aren't being sold.
Well, for somebody who's like kind of in the middle of that a lot, especially for right now, like obviously everybody is seeing that there is a less amount of people going out to shows because of the economy, right? Mm-hmm. We all know that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
How do you, as somebody who is essentially middlemaning between, your artist and, the venue or whatever, the talent buyer, how are you managing all those egos? Like, how do you, like, because I'm sure at some point you have to be like to your artist, or maybe not, or maybe to the talent buyer, be like, hey, bro, listen, we're not booking what we used to. You know what I mean? So how do you, and I can imagine
that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, like especially as artists, we're so fucking sensitive. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you deal with that?
On the artist side, my artist in particular, I am so blessed. I'm so lucky. My guys just don't have that like big egos. They're very smart businessmen. So they don't want. And what artist wants to be like? Oh, I need my tickets to be, X amount of dollars, and then they go play to 40%. They want to play to a raucous, sold out room where everybody's shoulder to shoulder. So we'll look at our ticket sales last time and still make them $5 cheaper, $10 cheaper. Just to make sure that like things sell out. So in terms, and I I don't think I can say that for all artists. I think there are plenty of artists that are, excuse me, that are egotistical out there and are like, I sold this many last time. I'm sure I can, even though it's a bad economy, I'll do better. And maybe they haven't put out music in 2 years or whatever. I think that's another thing that contributes to this is guys try to rinse and repeat and then, aren't touring behind music, which makes it tougher. And I would say Live Nation doesn't move with very much ego either. They're super analytically driven.
Right.
They've got a bunch of professionals that are there to make the company as much money as possible. That doesn't necessarily, and again, that just does not necessarily mean having the most expensive tickets ever, unless you're Taylor Swift.
Right.
That's so interesting, man. I want to. I love this conversation. I want to transition into kind of the next level. I don't know if this is the next level or not. It could be parallel, but can we talk about signing artists?
Yeah.
And how you discover artists. But actually, can we start with a story for this?
Yeah.
Can we start with a story? How did you?
I was just about to tell the Slander story. We can jump
Yes.
right
Exactly.
back
Yes.
into that.
We're jumping back into the story.
No, it's great.
Yes.
Kids got ADD. This is the exact way to do it. Let Will draw, nauseate people for 10 minutes for the story, and then stop him and ask him a question, and then come back to it.
So we're about to sign. You got.
Yeah, so
handed
Brendan
Slander.
Barrett got me a meeting with Derek and Scott, and I went down to meet them in Orange County and eat pasta with them. And I had seen some videos of their performances, and they were just absolute superstars before, just playing, direct support to DJ Snake as like local DJs and making these great videos with Peter Don back in the day, who I had actually known from Dimmock Tuesdays and Dre's and all that stuff. Shout out all you guys. And Derek and Scott looked at me, at the end of the dinner and just, very quietly said to me, "Look, man, we're gonna work our tails off, and we're gonna be the biggest DJs in the world one day." And I was sitting there, and I was like, "I want to be the biggest manager in the world one day, so let's fucking go!" And I was just so amped up by, like, I think, look, over prepare, right? Over prepare. But if you're a little bit of a fucking completely delusional person, you're going to go real far. Most things that hold people back are themselves.
True.
The best thing that you can have in yourself is absolute blind belief.
Yes.
That
It's okay
you're
to be
going
a
to be
little
the
delusional.
greatest thing in the fucking world. And, what do they say? Shoot for the stars, land on the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's what they were. And look at them now. They literally are on top of the fucking world, and they've been doing it. They've been that big since before the pandemic and when Love Is Gone came out, and even kind of missed a couple years being on top of the world because of, the world was shut down and all that stuff. But, them looking at me over pasta and saying that, that was their goal was like, our goals are aligned.
So were you looking for something specific going into that meeting, or just like in that general time?
I was trying to catch a vibe, and, I wanted to, they took me into the car, Derek had like an old beat up BMW back then that was like 15 years old. And, he had these huge, the speakers were probably worth more than the car. And, I remember sitting in the back of the coupe, like all scrunched up with my legs like this and just listening to their jams and going, yeah, these guys can do it.
And so that was so at the time, were you still managing
Yeah,
Bixel
Boys. Slander was my second client.
So Slander was the second. Okay, so you're doing Bixel Boys, and obviously you had this, which is kind of interesting because obviously like they had their own career,
totally different.
But the T-shirt thing was like that's like a whole nother like whoa, like the T-shirts are bigger than the artist.
Derek and I think Scott said, if this guy can blow up Bixel Boys off of T-shirts,
right?
He can definitely blow us up because we've got great music and we've got great energy,
right?
And we've got a great brand and all those things.
So what was I'm very curious for you when you start working with an artist, like when you start working with Slander. Now you have Bixel Boys, right? You've done that. So now you look at them, and are you like instantly thinking, okay, look, I know what they're doing right, and I also know what they're doing wrong. Is that at that point, are you confident in that yet, or was that more later?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always had an opinion, but the artist is generally right because they live it, they breathe it, they get every DM. It's in their gut, it's in their soul, it's in their North Star every 5 minutes of every single fucking day, and they're authentically them. So, you try to just make sure that they don't like run off a cliff more
Sure.
than, one of the big red flags is people say, "Oh, you should just sign this guy or girl. They just need a little bit of direction."
Oh God.
Right.
No.
Why?
Because
No, I'm saying like why would you have to do extra work for somebody?
someone should know exactly
Right.
who they are, and that can ebb and flow, and they could be one thing, and then they, like my friend Marie Vaughn was heavy grinder before. She's on a fucking absolute tear right now, and she used to come to Lure and play Lure back in the day, and we just reconnected over the weekend at EDC, and another one of my clients, Atura, like, if once you can think you're going to be one thing or whatever, and then you make 7 or 8 years of mistakes, and then you bring it back down, and then you go in a totally different direction based on all of the mistakes that you made. But in the beginning, you should, even if you're running 100% the wrong direction, I still want that conviction. I still want that vision. Right now in 2026, the music is always going to be the number one the most important thing. But as music becomes easier and easier and easier to make, it's going to be about having taste so that your music is different and unique. But the vision and how you're telling the story and what you stand for is becoming more and more important. It's always been the second most important thing, and I don't think anything's ever going to be more important than music. That sounds absurd, but it's just like, we back in the day, like I'm not going to name them because their feelings would get hurt, but there were so many producers that were just fucking nerds, and they were just really good at making music and nothing else, had no brand, no vision, and they just put out hits, and they were the little dweebs going up on stage with their pre-recorded sets and all that shit. Doesn't exist anymore. I could start dogging people that literally would not exist if they came out today.
Right.
And there's a million incredibly sick producers there that just started at the wrong time or didn't have the vision or whatever it may be. Like, there are goated producers out there, not headlining EDC all over the fucking country. So you got to have it all.
Okay, so I got a banger right now. Okay,
Do it.
Because it's making
Do
me
it.
think. Okay, so we're talking about Slander, and you're about to manage him, right? So, Will, I want to ask you, what does a manager do first and foremost? So, what is a manager's job? Okay, and then second question would be, what makes a good manager, and what's a bad manager? For people at home, so what they know, because I don't think people really know what what is a manager's job really supposed to be for an artist like Slander, or maybe somebody that's just starting out.
So let's break this down and take it even a step further back to go forward into the manager question. Let's talk about everything that's not a manager.
Okay.
So an agent brings you the shows. Okay. The business manager counts the pennies. The lawyer does negotiates the red lines, the contracts. Your label is going to purchase your music and then market your music. Your publicist is going to handle your interviews and stuff like that. And maybe you have a social media manager who's helping you on social strategy, whatever. The manager sits in the middle of all that and is essentially the vice president of the artist project. And what makes a great manager is being able to take all that complex information from all those different entities, simplifying it for their client, and then bringing it to their client to go through the decision-making process with them, and then taking that information back to all those different entities to guide them to do the right thing on behalf of the artist, so that the artist can just stay back and just work on their sets, work on their music, and work on the branding and the vision.
So the guardian angel,
Jeez,
the
dude.
protector. Told you it was a banger.
That's so enlightening.
Yeah.
Though. You know what I'm saying? You put that like
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, you're the middleman.
You're the communicator.
So it's not your job to go out there and find brand deals and do all this.
We do that too. We use all the relationships that we have to do it, but
Right.
Sometimes you have a branding agent who does that.
You're the middleman. You are facilitating. You're protecting the artist, the art. You're protecting the art so that they don't have to deal with any of that. I mean, they deal with it, but they don't. You're allowing them to continue to create, to do what they're good at.
Look, the managers are the Jedis of the music industry because we know a little bit about booking shows. We know a little bit about legal. We know a little bit about marketing. We know a little bit about social media. We know a little bit about business management and taxes and all that stuff. And it's the one thing where you be a jack of all trades and master of none, and it's okay.
Right.
And if you can be like me, I'm a master. I don't think that's a strong word, but my strengths are touring, marketing, branding. My business partner Steven's music, A&R, legal, and so that's why we're kind of like a yin and yang to what we do, and where I can actually go into a room and say, like the marketing that we do will rival any dance label out there. And my connections with Spotify and Apple and Pandora and all those things will rival any product manager at a distro company. So they're like, I'm a quote unquote like expert at that. Like my background of like talent buying and my network of all the people I know, I can actually say, I probably could agent your whole career, like if I wanted to dedicate. So, the managers, I don't think there's any manager alive who literally is like all 6 or 7 of those things and at the level of an agent, of an attorney. There's like my buddy Joey P, who manages Louis the Child and Murph. Like he got a law degree. He never was like a practicing lawyer, or maybe he was. I forgot, but he literally got a law degree. So when he's looking at a contract alongside the attorney, if they even happen to miss something, he's gonna know. Now, if I'm just trusting the attorney, I'm not fucking. I might catch a material term, which is really fucking scary. Then you fire your lawyer, right? But I'm not gonna be able to be like, whoa, what about this fine print on section 3, point 2? That that's the attorney's job. That's not, and not only that, it's not. You can't give legal advice if you're not an attorney anyway. So, and then some guys like me come from events. Like my business partner Steven has an A&R background. Right. He's also a music producer himself, so he can talk plugins and presets and all that stuff. So that's why the two of us make a great team together, is because the two of us, there are a lot of expertise handled at a very, very high level. And when we go into meetings, we're able to kind of say, even though we're overseeing the A&R or the publicist, or I was even a publicist for a couple years. Juke Life PR was blah blah, and I can read hard ticket offers because I used to send hard ticket offers and all that stuff. So we can actually go into a signing with a big artist and actually say, look, between the two of us, we actually, except for being attorneys, and business managers, CPAs, we actually kind of are almost expert level at all the shit that fucking matters to you,
That's so awesome that you're working at that like such high level in all these little areas of the industry. I wanted to bring up a question that's just been in my head. With your background, are managers really not legally allowed to book a show?
Yes, they are not allowed.
So you
Legally.
can't double dip.
Oh, well, no, it's not even, you were just literally not, one, you can't double dip for sure in any, well, I mean, like people do it, like they'll own the label and then commission people. I think that's fucking ridiculous. And if any of your managers are doing that, you should let them go. That's a bad manager. You should let them go their own way. But you, as a manager, I am technically not allowed to even procure a show in the state of California. Every state is different, but in California, it is illegal for me to procure a show.
Even with your background?
Yep.
Wow.
100%.
Wow.
So you would have to stop. So you had to stop booking shows. You had
No,
to
I did them both at the same time, but I just couldn't, like booking a show for my client is different than sending an offer to book someone else's client.
Oh, okay. So that's the difference.
Right.
Okay.
But the reason why I left, kind of left that was because, I had I still do, which people don't understand, but I kind of had a two-sided mirror. So like, people were like, I don't want Will to know what my fee is for this club. I don't want to book with him because, he has a competing, artist or whatever. And it just became too overwhelming because we were doing like big shit too. But that is one of it did kind of become like a conflict of interest being a talent buyer. It's not a conflict of interest in Asia. It's not a conflict of interest in Australia, but United States is kind of like the big leagues, kind of like the NBA versus like the Australian basketball league or the whatever. And it's very much in Latin music it still happens, but in dance music it's very, very, very rare. And I think the guys who do it, like there are some guys I can think of in my head that do it, they're very honest about it, and there's not that much like funny business that can even like go into it. It really just comes down to like all of these jobs are really stressful, all encompassing, and 40 or 50 hours a week of any of these jobs that I named is going to consume you anyway.
Yeah.
So you're going to do both. You're probably going to be, I'd be selling myself short if I was still booking shows right now. And I'd be selling myself short if I wanted to be a talent buyer and a festival producer if I was also managing, So, and look, there's a lot of guys who still do it. No knock to them, and I think there's people who are much more talented than me that can handle all this stuff, and maybe they're using AI or they've got a great team around them and stuff like that. So I don't want to say like it's impossible or whatever, but for me, I was just more passionate about being close to the artist. So that's what took me down that path.
You have such a good strength in really understanding ticket sales and understanding budgets and understanding what an artist is worth to be able to be competitive to other places, to be like, well, I want to get my guy booked versus, I want to get, Slander, Nghtmre, Gud Vibrations like booked right now versus like another B2B. And I know what they're probably going to want to get. This, like, you have that, it's inside information, but it's not, it's like, it's information that you've like spent the time curating and actually learning. So I could see how that's like, as an artist who was, let's say they're looking at, different management, they're really hot, and you guys are coming at them, and maybe other management companies. I can see how attractive you guys would be just on the fact of just that specific thing. It's a really powerful thing to have.
Fucking Steven's a
I know. Yeah, we'll get
monster,
into Steven
bro.
too, but
Oh my
I want
God,
to talk about
Steven's
Steven for sure.
a beast, bro. Steven's secured, and Eric Binman, who works at our company too. Eric Binman's got before he was at Prodigy, but he secured fucking Ed Sheeran feature for one of his clients. And,
Crazy,
we got Wiz Khalifa, Black Bear, Bring Me the Horizon was fucking crazy.
Yeah,
that's huge.
ASAP Ferg. We did multiple tracks with ASAP Ferg. That's all Steven, literally all Steven.
We love you, Steven.
Yeah,
Shout
we
out
love you,
Steven.
Steven.
That's my brother.
Yes.
And some fucking Tory Lanez, and Gunna. We got dude, Gunna.
Yeah, dude.
People are gonna say I'm insane for this, but top 10 Gunna song is with Nghtmre. Go check it out.
Yep.
Top 5 Nghtmre songs with Gunna. So
Crazy, dude.
If you're an EDM producer and you need some serious sounds, make sure you guys go to XLNTSOUND.com. They have everything you need, from serum presets, project files, remakes, and even free downloads for you guys. And check out all these different testimonials that all these heavy-hitting EDM producers are saying about XLNTSOUND.com.
And on top of that, use code TheExcellentShow at checkout to save 10% off your next purchase. I want to get more into some more stories, but I have one question on our last subject. So, you talked about all of the facets of like the team, right? So for the producers and artists at home, when is it time for them to look for a manager to start their whole team? Because you just named like 7 or 8 people.
I would say when it becomes so overwhelming that they're doing music as a full-time job essentially, and they're drowning. Most people are like doing music part-time and they have another job and they're like, oh, if I get a manager, he'll take me to the next level. No, you should be getting email inquiries for shows. You should have, labels hitting you up and being like, damn, I can't field all this interest. Don't look for a manager to like take you to the next level. Yeah. If a manager is going to take you to the next level, they're going to just fucking find you, you know? And all I know my algorithm's tuned to it. Like new artists, I just swipe and new artists just show up all day on my Instagram algorithm, all fucking day, literally. I know a bunch, all of us are kind of like that. So, look, if you think your shit's super hot, you can email some managers, but it's not really the way to go about it. It's not really the way to go about it. Just focus on your shit. Get up 4 or 5, social media posts a day, preview your music 5 times. When a song comes out, post about it 5 more times. Have a North Star, stand for something, tell a story. I think the days of like just dancing in front of your, in your studio are fading away right now. I think kids do like to like see that energy and stuff like that, but it has to be one of, 4 or 5 different content buckets, not just like the only one that you do. I think DJ support is really big. It often starts with like flips and remixes getting played out, and then that's like, Excision will play your flip out, but then you kind of open the door for Excision to hear your originals and put it on your label and all that stuff. But artists are also really out there DMing young producers and saying, yo, bro, send me this track I heard on your Instagram and all that stuff. And on top of that, the biggest guys, they've got someone in their studio who's trying to fill up their sets with all the new hot shit. Like, I won't give your secret away, but my boy DJ Benzi basically writes, a lot of it doesn't write, but helps the big guys with a lot of their sets. And he's always digging and finding the new shit and all that stuff. And he's always sending me kids I never heard of that are dope. And there's
his service is crazy too.
His service is crazy.
It's insane.
Every 98 artists for every 100 artists I identify as like, wow, these guys are kind of like sick producers, and I really like this one or two songs. 2 of them will have vision. So, there's a million record producers out there, and the most important thing going forward is, are you a star? I think what we're really entering, we entered it. It's been a couple years of this, is like the hip hop version of dance music, and what I really mean by that is, like in the SoundCloud era, right? That was a decade ago. Could you even blow up without a face tat? Like, it wasn't even possible.
You needed a face tat.
So, or you needed crazy hair or whatever. So if you're a dance artist and you just look like a barista at Starbucks, and maybe a Brooklyn barista at, you know what I'm saying? But if you look like a barista in Starbucks in Albany, New York, or Lincoln, Nebraska, like, it's probably not going to be enough for you. And being a star can literally, you don't have to look like Brad Pitt. It can literally be as easy as getting a crazy haircut, having a crazy outfit, getting a bunch of tattoos, whatever it may be, and then you pull it all together in a vision. Maybe you get a bunch of fucking anime tattoos, and then your brand is kind of like anime, and then you put Japanese style samples in your music, and then boom, that's a fucking thing. Maybe you have like a car brand and you put car noises in your song, and you fucking, you drive a motorcycle. Johnny doesn't have a motorcycle, but
he likes. But what's interesting about that too is, like we've said this a lot, is how important the authenticity is. Like Johnny
100%.
really loves fucking cars.
Yes.
Dude, the first music video we ever did was $700. Like, this shit does not. It was $400. We literally convinced someone to let us like borrow their like matte black Charger. He went to fucking Home Depot and bought a bunch of red flares, and he like DM'd every single like motorcycle. He like would just go on Facebook and look up like motorcycle crew Irvine, motorcycle crew LA, motorcycle, and he just DM'd them, and 100 million people said, 100 people said no, and then he just got 4 guys in motorcycles, and he just stood on top of a fucking car with a fucking flare like this. And then we just went around it. We just went around it with a camera, and that was it.
It was fucking
sick. And it was fucking sick,
Crazy.
And the technology is like 50 fucking million times now. You got AI and all this shit. So people are like, oh, I don't have enough money. Dude, we're even to this day, my artists are getting super creative and doing shit on nothing budgets. So download Ableton, have a fucking vision, get creative, maybe spend, over the year, get a nice camera. Look, again, the startup costs are still 5Gs. Like, I get that. It's not the barrier for entry is not basketball level where you just buy a pair of shoes and you go to the fucking park and you can go crazy. Like, you still need to, but again, do you need to buy a camera? Does your friend have a camera? Like, a lot of stuff can be, you can crew up. Like, find the kid in town who's like posting videos on his shit and see if he wants to work together and whatever. And you're making music now. He's got music for his videos and all that stuff. So you don't need to necessarily like go buy a $3,000 camera to like make the shit happen.
We have iPhones.
Got these, dude.
Like,
got these,
people are
dude.
doing crazy
They're
shit
insane.
on
That's what I'm
iPhones.
saying,
Yeah.
dude. So people exactly.
So with that, like,
forgot about those.
yeah, because you're this is great because I think this is going up because these people, this is what they want to know. They want to know, okay, how do I do it? I don't have any experience like selling myself. Maybe I'm a more introverted person. So you're talking about a lot of things of like, okay, like what do you pick something that makes you unique, right? there's something we talked about on the call that I thought that was really important that you should bring up. And how does somebody, like, what is a good advice for these guys to start their own brand? I mean, you've covered some of it, but you've definitely specifically have said stuff to us.
Yeah. So it's so simple. Okay. Figure out what your primary color is. Figure out what your secondary cover is. Pick a font that you're going to use every single time. Go on Google right now and type in brand archetype wheel. It'll pop right up. Figure out, are you the hero? Are you the innocent? Are you the ruler? Are you the magician? Are you the storyteller? And sometimes you can be a combination of two different things. And that's it. But now you got to tie it all together. You got to make your music sound like whatever you're trying to be, and you got to live it and breathe it, and you got to find 5 different content buckets and the way you're going to tell that story or whatever. But everybody just comes armed with like, here's my beats, and then I dance in front of the camera, and that is just not going to be enough. I'm sorry, that era is over. That era, even besides the dancing in front of the camera, is fucking 15 years old now.
Yeah.
You really got to tie it all together, and then it's got to be authentic, you know? And then with the use of like AI now, you could, you know, you're like, oh, well, how do I figure out which one of those things that I am? Go into ChatGPT and say, ask me 50 questions I want to develop my artist brand. Ask me 50 questions or 30 questions, whatever, about me and my music and my vision and my brand to figure out exactly what I'm trying to be. And it'll do a fucking questionnaire for you, and in 7 minutes you'll know exactly what you are or what you aren't.
Yeah.
And that you don't have it, and then you don't have a fucking vision or whatever. Because they can't if the answers to your questions are bland and not unique, then yes, you need to put some thought into this. You know, and the true artists, yeah, they might have it in their soul. It might come very naturally to them. But, you know, if you're doing that exercise on ChatGPT and your answers are, you know, I do Arial font and black and white and, you know, neon colors, and I like laser beams, or like kids tell me like what's your brand? Like, oh, I have like a lot of energy.
Sick.
Sick.
Yeah.
What DJ doesn't have a lot of energy? Like, okay, you know, so the answer to the questions have to be mildly unique, or to create something unique, sometimes just a combination of 2 different things that someone else is doing. Everything's a remix, number one. Every song's already been made, pretty much. You know, in terms of the base of it, in every song that comes out now, especially with Suno and AI, is to somewhat, you know, to some extent a remix or an interpolation, or, you know, I took the drums from this guy and I took the melody from this song and I changed one note in the melody. And there's even a documentary called Everything's a Remix, and it shows you that most of the Rolling Stone songs were literally just Howlin' Wolf, you know, from the 1930s. And, you know, there's just so much, that's why like bands like Fish, who like make up the songs live on the road, are so attractive,
Right.
you know, and they might be remixing things that are like from their brain, they're doing it live, but it's just, you know, at the end of the day, from rock music to hip hop, you know, look at hip hop in the 80s and 90s, every single thing was a fucking sample.
Yep.
You know, everything Kanye did was, you know, all of his chipmunk voices were just, you know, sped up vocals from the 70s and 80s or whatever.
Dude, facts, bro.
That's huge. There was a lot of hard truths in there too. You know what I'm saying? Like
That's what I came here to do.
I love it. I love it, dude. Dude, you mentioned Joyryde.
Yes.
Can you tell us the story of Johnny and Joyryde?
He's so
Yeah.
fucking good, bro.
Yeah,
We love Johnny,
he's
dude.
the greatest of all time. So, yeah, me and Steven discovered Johnny in like, I don't know, was it 2015, something like that? And I remember us being on SoundCloud and doing one of these. And we were like, holy shit. He had like 8 songs on SoundCloud, and every time he'd drop a song on SoundCloud, he'd drop a video on YouTube, which we thought was insane. And they would be every 30 days, like fucking clockwork. So he had just gotten out of like a bad management relationship as Let's Be Friends, which is his project before. And so if we go back to like my upbringing, I was the oldest of 6 kids, and, you know, it was very hard to take care of that many kids. So we had our babysitter, Nora Kadiri. She was, her parents were Nigerian immigrants. She was like straight A student, captain of the soccer team, like just absolute beast of a human being. And, she her brother was in a gang, and they came to his house, and he got murdered when Nora was like 13 years old. Man. So my mom was like, "Yo, you just come like live at our house now." And she gave me Notorious B.I.G. Ready to Die when I was in like 3rd grade. Sick. So like when I was in 4th grade, I would just sit cross-legged and watch BET 106 in Park, and like every day. And I was just like immersed in black culture, going to an all-white Catholic school because of Nora. And I would, I spent every day with her. She's an incredible mom now. She's got 4 kids. They're all insane athletes. They all get straight A's. I literally said to her, "Do any of them get an A-?" She said, "No." Damn. I will.
Wow.
They will hear about it if
Nora's
they get
about it.
She's about it. They all speak Spanish. Like, it's insane. Anthony's a senior at Evanston High School right now. He just won state. Or he's a junior. He's been winning state in the 4x4 every fucking year. So anyway, the reason why I say that is because, we told Johnny we were big fans, and we took him to John and Vinny's over on Fairfax. And I said to him, "Yo, I know all the rap samples in all your music." And he was like, "No, you don't." And I was like, "Yo, Flo, that N-word, shaky like you got Parkinson's, and like the lyric, like the sound, like this just sample." And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "That's Cassidy versus Murder Mook, 106 in Park, Freestyle nice. Fridays."
Boy does his homework.
It's not even a song.
Yeah.
And he was like,
"Damn.
All right, mate. So you come to my studio tomorrow, and we'll get started." And then he tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, "I got to go." And that was it.
Damn, he's so cool. He's so cool.
He wasn't even, I could just see in his face, he was like, "Holy shit. Like, I cannot believe this kid fucking."
Yeah.
Because it's only live on YouTube,
like
blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I would always listen to all of his songs. And, I was ready to, like, rattle off a couple more because I was, like, over-prepared for the moment.
And there's a theme going on here.
But he just kind of, just to be, he was like, "Oh, yeah, that was it. All right." And he basically looked at us and was like, "Yeah, you guys are the guys. Let's go."
Nice.
That's so huge.
So, I mean, because... The funny thing too about that, and we got to get into, because I know we're going all over, but I think this is great because we were talking about Slander, and I know Slander leads to Nghtmre, and I want to get into that story. But since we're on the Johnny thing, there was a buzz about him at that time. People were like, "There's this guy. He had, I think Windows had come out, because that was before you guys, like Windows with Rick Ross, right?"
No, we did that one.
Oh, you guys did that one.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So that's when I had like kind of caught on, but
I think that was the music video we made.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing that I want to talk about was the lead up to, like, I don't know, it was like the ultimate. There was just this huge hype and buzz, and then he played the show at the Palladium where he brought the car in.
Yep.
That was
Wait, was it Palladium or Avalon?
Both. He did both.
What was the first
there for
one
both
he did?
of them.
You took me to Avalon.
Avalon was the first one.
I said, "Steven," I said,
No.
"Can you
okay,
get
so
me into
Avalon
this show?
Avalon
I want to see Johnny."
Avalon was, he DJ'd in a car.
Yeah.
And Palladium was the spinning Lamborghinis on the side of the stage.
So we
went to Avalon.
Yeah. Okay. So talk about, because that's like a legendary, like that's like become like a legendary moment. So like, because that was like, I remember I had heard that he'd spent all of the money that he had or something. Can you talk about that whole story about how you guys, because that was like a rollout.
All of the money?
I don't know if that was true or not, but I'm just saying. Or he spent more. Okay. Can you talk about how that, because you guys created an explosion of, you guys had already done it with Nghtmre and Slander, and then you guys signed on Joyryde, right? Who had, like I said, like a lot of hype behind him.
Yeah.
So, but you guys created this moment together with having the car, and it just like exploded everywhere. Can you talk about how that was like sort of thing happened, and then the explosion of his career after that?
Yeah, I mean, the Avalon show, we basically hollowed out a car and mounted it on the stage there. And that one was a little bit more like reasonable, but putting 2 Lamborghini Countacs from
I didn't see
1984 and draining out all the oil from them and, getting the antique guy. I remember it was supposed to be 2 red, and we lost one of them, and it ended up being a red and a white, and Johnny was like, we were looking all over town to find another red one, and it ended up not being the same color, but it was all good. And then we had we had fake breakaway glass that was like rolled up into the Lamborghinis, and then we had a SWAT team come down from the ceiling and smash the windows of he turned it into a music video.
Oh,
it's like a 3.5-minute music video instead of like a 90-minute set or whatever. And we had the SWAT teams come down from the ceiling and smash the windows. And I mean, I don't think Johnny would be upset by saying he put more than his fee and more than the production budget into that. I mean, it's kind of obvious, frankly.
yeah.
And that's just the way that he was. What he taught me was effort never goes unnoticed. If you put in more effort than everybody, people will see. And I think that's one thing that's really lacking is these kids are like, editing music videos and dancing in front of their camera and whatever and blah, 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 blah. But, even the music video story of him going to Home Depot and buying the flares and DMing 100 million people to get the cars to show up and, all that stuff. He's just a crazy guy. He's just the hardest working dude ever. And he just put in that effort and everyone could see his effort. And obviously if you're, putting in a bunch of effort and then, the output doesn't look crazy, then it doesn't really matter. But if you put in like a crazy amount of effort and then, what comes out of it looks substantial, people are always going to recognize that effort. And that's something that he always taught me.
That's awesome, man. That's cool that you're able to learn from your artists too.
Yeah, these guys, I mean, they're the vision, they're everything. I'm just along for the ride,
I want to also jump into the Nghtmre story because there's this one quote that you had said that's always stuck out to me. And it was during the Honda did a thing for help me. You guys did it with Tyler for Nghtmre. What was the?
Yeah,
was
it was like
commercial?
BuzzFeed or something like that. It was like one of those like viral websites. And they followed. Yeah, it was I think it was with Honda, and they followed around like really young artists like along their come up and like showed like what made them special.
Yes. So you had said, I was going to Icon, and there was this specific quote that you said about Nghtmre that like really stuck with me as far as like trying to, at that time I was trying to be an artist. Obviously, like this led out to be the perfect thing. And when I look back at it, I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing 100% with Excellent Sound. But you had said that Tyler is the type of kid that would, you dropped a Lego set in front of him, and I'm going to fuck up the quote, but you said this awesome quote, and you said that he would take all those Legos and he would create something you've never seen before. And I was like, damn, like that's a fucking real artist.
Well, the analogy that I made was that, when you have like Serum and you have Ableton and you have all these things, and this was also like 12 years ago, so the tech was a little bit like less advanced. But he's everyone's playing with like the same the same Legos, right? Everyone has the same equipment, but he was making the most insane sounds because he was also like filing an edge off the Legos or whatever to make it like ultra unique, and then it clipped to him in his fucking living room recording the sound of spoons and shit. And that's how you got Street, and that's how you got like all these legendary records because he was like doing sound design on Ableton is one thing, going and recording household items that to make it sound like nothing ever before is what he was going beyond the Legos in the analogy.
Not in, I love that quote. I always think about that when I think about being original, about how like and I have so much respect for Tyler just as like a producer. Obviously we both do, but I always remember that. It always like sticks in my head. I'm like, damn, like what is going to be my thing that I find out for people at home. But with Tyler, can you talk about how, so you're managing Slander, right? And obviously they start doing really well, but wasn't it really right soon after that Tyler came into the picture too at that point? Or can you tell that story?
Yeah. I didn't want to manage Nghtmre first.
Oh shit.
Wow.
I had like 9 nightclubs I was booking. I was going crazy with the lure shit. I had Bixel Boys and I had Slander. I was like, my hands are full.
Right.
Me and Steven was trying to get me to join up, and he was going to bring like Nadia Ali as his like flagship artist. And he looked at me. He was like, dude, you got to sign this Nghtmre kid with me. And he was having trouble signing Tyler, and Tyler had some people in his life who were telling him that Steven's not big enough for you, blah 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 blah. And right as Steven and I were kind of like coming together and becoming like really close friends, we were on our way driving to EDC. I believe it was in 2013 or 14, and Steven played his remix of Victor Neilio. I don't know if it's still on SoundCloud. You can go check it out. The sound design was just absurd, and by the time the song was over, I was like, yo, call this kid right now. And we called him on the drive, on the 15, on the way to Las Vegas, and I basically said, like, the day we get back, like Monday or Tuesday, like, I need to come to your studio, and me and Steven are going to sign you together. And he was like, all right, whatever. And he was going to school with Slander at the time. So, he obviously I had the Slander, Slander could co-sign me to him. Right. Derek and Tyler were best friends still are best friends. And, I went in there and I was like, look, I can book you in these 8 or 9 markets, and I can, kind of make some things happen like overnight and blah, 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 blah. And the signing of Nghtmre basically created mine and Steven's company. That was the moment that we came together. Yeah.
So, okay, so I do want to talk about, because I want to get more into the Nghtmre story, but we do have to mention Stephen Haddad.
Yes.
Right? So shout out Stephen. Parker and I both had a relationship with Stephen from Guitar Center years before we started doing Excellent Sound. Always the nicest guy. Would listen to my tracks and say, you're not there yet all the time. But always a listener.
You need someone like that in your life.
Yeah, and I would never, and honestly was the nicest, like, keep working, always like super supportive. How did your guys' friendship start? Right, because Steven he was trying
to book he had this girl duo, I forgot their name, but they don't produce, they're not a thing anymore, and he was trying to get them booked at Lure, so he would take me out to lunch and befriend me to butter me up to like book his shit. And then I was doing a walkthrough for a nightclub in the south side of San Francisco with Bobby Sarnavesht, who is just a absolute, he was a very wealthy guy then, and he's been a mogul. He founded Triller. He's been a health entrepreneur for a very long time, owns a bunch of hospitals, all that stuff. Very, very, very bright guy. And he wanted to be a DJ, and he was ready to pay, me on retainer, but, I could go get him a bunch of bookings and make that pop off, but I didn't know the music side very well. So I brought Steven in to split the retainer with me, and we literally got this guy, this is 10 years ago, we literally got this guy Calvin Harris remix and a Tiesto collab.
Wow.
And we got him, I think, a Chucky collab, and I put him on a 22-city tour where I took my MC skills, my college MC skills on the road.
Back.
He was very shy, and so he didn't want to – he ain't shy now, but he just didn't want to be on the mic. So I went on a 20-city tour with him and MC'd. If you scroll to the bottom of my Instagram, you can see me jumping off this DJ stage at the Yost Theater, like dub style, flying off it. And if you want to just tell a funny story, we were opening up for Alesso in Playa del Carmen, and I literally jumped off the stage, and I high ankle sprain, and so now I'm like hobbling around on the stage, and like we were so fucking good that the promoter, in Mexico, they don't really give a fuck like who's booked or whatever, and they kind of had like some sleepy house guys like closing, and they literally told them like, yo, you guys are done, Bobby Puma and his MC are going on again. So I hobbled around with a fucking broken ankle with a high ankle sprain, and then afterwards we went into the streets of Playa del Carmen and I signed autographs.
Nice.
Dude, that's so sick.
It was ridiculous. I had so much tequila in me, it would didn't even matter. Like nice. I was basically on like dream, Percocet level tequila in my body to just do that. I mean, we played 90 minutes and 90 minutes. So,
dude, that's crazy.
That was a fun one.
So, okay. So let's talk about Gud Vibrations a little bit.
Yeah.
So was there Was there ever a thought of them being like a trifecta as one
Yeah.
artist? Because I heard rumors about that like back in the day. Was that ever a thing where he was going to be like a third member of Slander, or it was like
We explored it, but we ended up trying to essentially like they started the label together, and then Good Vibrations for like a couple years are there, and we did a tour as Good Vibrations. It kind of turned into like a DJ set, but that was really for us just to get recognition to the label. And Good Vibrations now isn't really a DJ, like a DJ trio. It's just the label.
Yeah.
But we did Nghtmre and Slander present Good Vibrations as a tour to get us into the Palladium, to get us into Concord, to get us into PlayStation Theater in New York City. So we could, like, both artists weren't big enough. So we put them together and they had like EPs together and all this stuff. And that's when we launched the label, was that exact time. So we used that to kind of market the label. And then because of that, they ended up getting booked as like Good Vibrations, the DJs. But you'll see we've kind of corrected that branding over the last like 8 or 9 years, where it's like the big marquee and it says Good Vibrations, but then it'll say Nghtmre, it'll say Slander back-to-back Nghtmre, and then it'll say, Peekaboo or Alice in Wonderland or blah, 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 whoever.
Right.
We've pretty much had every I think Rez played one, maybe. Don't quote me on that, but she released on the label when we did collabs, and we've had Sudden Death on them and Ghastly and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's like such a creative way of pushing your artists, I see a lot of current artists doing some similar things like that, like Nghtmre and ISO.
Absolutely.
And it's like there's power in numbers, and if you're at this level, if you come together, you're at this level.
Yeah. I mean, we learned it from like Marshmello and Jaws.
Yeah.
And Keizo. And that community, one thing I haven't mentioned for all you young folks out there is like build community. Don't like think that it's a rat race and you're like competing with your friends. Make music with your friends. Crew up. Create a sub brand that you guys are, and that sub brand doesn't need to be like a whole record label or anything like that. Just come up with like a thing that you guys do. Or when I get with, I'm DJ A and I get with DJ B and we skateboard, like that's our thing, And then DJ A gets with DJ C and they surf, or like whatever. And it's just like those branding elements. Like one thing I also haven't mentioned about modern artists and how to be great is put your whole life on the internet. Like kids want to be friends of you. They don't want to be fans of you. They want to know, oh shit, like he wears Jordans, like I wear Jordans too. Oh, like he's he hates Donald Trump, like I hate Donald Trump too.
Yeah.
She surfs like I surf too, whatever it may be. And then you have those like personality touch points that people can relate to. Oh, they're a Dodgers fan. Like I'm from LA. I'm a Dodgers fan too. Oh, I wear Yankee caps. Like, they wear Yankee caps too. And then you want to be able to, and you don't want to do it all at once. And you don't want to do it like my top 5 favorite baseball teams. You want to like subtly, add it to what you're doing versus like, like someone I'm mentoring right now was like, oh, I'm going to do like my like outfit of the day and like explain to people like what's in my closet. And I was like, nah, don't do that. Just fucking, do a fucking content shoot and like be funny and like skateboard through the store or something like that. And like you have the shirt on or like, you know what I'm saying? Just something that would kind of be loud, but just like, just literally wear the clothes, or like have a candid moment like with your buddy and be like, at least you didn't wear your Off-White here because like they spilled their drink on them or like whatever, you know what I mean? It's like kids are so, and then it's got to like be authentic. So if whenever you're like telling someone, you're probably not doing it right versus like subtly showing them, without telling is much more powerful.
That's so big. That's like huge for producers.
I think humor too. Like if you're like fun, like a lot of people relate of like they have the same sense of humor. Like I think like with us, like we're like for fucking 12-year-old boys, like when we're making dick jokes. Yeah, like you know,
We get dressed up and shit, you know, like
gay chicken as much whatever the fuck we can do. Like we think it's all funny, and I think that our people that watch us, they relate to that when we make our jokes or whatever. They're like, oh yeah, like you know, like, and I think that that's a huge way for people to kind of come together. And it's like this parasocial. I know that's like a kind of a bad word. Have you heard that word before? Parasocial, where it's like, oh, I know you through the camera. You know what I mean? But people do want to feel connected more so. Like
100%.
you're not just this like, you know, just this like being just an artist that puts out music that looks cool is not enough. Like people want to know who you are.
Yeah, be vulnerable.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we talked a ton about your artists. What's one thing all of your artists have in common that made you sign them or work with them?
Yeah.
Like there's got to be a common thing between all of your artists, even your current artists.
I would say like a genuine, authentic passion for dance music and like what they're doing. I don't really have anybody who just is kind of like really talented and like does it for the money. You know, everybody makes decisions where they're like, oh, cool, like this is just something that I want to do and we're not going to make any money, but it's just like dope. Let's do something that's
Passion.
dope, you know? So I would just say like you know, more or less, like I guess not everybody, but most of the gang like went to a rave and was like, oh shit, this is what I want to do. You know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's with everybody. There's a couple of my artists that really were like, oh, I'm just a composer. Like, I really just love making music. And it's maybe about like 50-50. To be honest with you, there's not that much that like every single one of them have in common. They're all like unique and lean on different strengths. And, you know, like Derek and Scott's story is like they were together as one, you know, and they looked at each other and they were like, oh, we're going to do this, you know? And, you know, Tyler, for example, Nghtmre, I think he was more like, I love making music. You know, I think he went to like Bonnaroo when he was younger and was like, oh, cool, like live music school. And I definitely like want to be an entertainer. But for him, it was more about like composing music is what and the guy loves to tour. He loves playing shows and all that too. But for him, I think it was really, you know, I think when Derek and Scott looked at each other and said, we want to do that, I don't think they had ever written a song. Like Derek was in choir when he was younger, so he grew up like singing and stuff like that, but I don't think they looked at each other I don't think at that moment that they looked at each other and said, we want to do this. Them making music came after that. They were like, oh, you know what, if we want to do this, then we gotta really harness our music making skills and really, you know, flex that creative muscle. Versus some people, it starts with them. But I think one thing that they all have in common is working their fucking tail off.
Yep.
I do not have a client who's like coasting right now and it's like working out for them. They all work so fucking hard. This is their dream. They all want to progress. They all want to shift culture. They all want to give their fans what they want. They also want to impress upon their fans like what they, you know, want their brand to be and all that stuff. And I don't really have anybody who's like not, you know, who's like just so talented or aloof or whatever that's like having great success that doesn't like work their fucking butts off.
That's huge.
What is harder, you think, breaking out somebody that's a brand new artist or having an artist that has success and getting them to the next level?
That's a really, really good question. I think we've done a really good job with both. We kind of routinely have picked up like legacy acts and took them and like doubled their revenue and taken them to the next level. I think the answer today is breaking out a new artist.
Yeah.
10 years ago was probably bringing up a legacy act. But right now it's just so saturated and there's so very few stars out there and so few people that like actually have a vision and can bring the whole story together that it's probably easier. And then you're also resourced more because that legacy act's probably making a couple bucks, so they have some like resources to kind of like kick it into the next gear. I'd say it's probably easier bringing up a legacy act than developing a new artist today. 10 years ago, way easier to find the new hot unique shit and ride the wave.
Interesting. And as far as like for these kids that are listening to you right now, this might be really scary for them, but what are some things that they are too late on that they're probably doing? that you're seeing a lot of? Because you hear a lot of music. Oh, we're also going to talk about a cool way at the end of the podcast. I just want to say this for you guys to be able to get your music to Will
definitely.
too. Yeah, because I know you want to say something.
I think the kids that are chasing trends, period, are behind. If you are like, oh, tech house is the new wave, or hard groove is like the wave we're in right now. If you're not making hard groove right now, probably don't, because if you're chasing trends, you're always going to be behind no matter what. All the songs that you're hearing right now were made 6 months to a year ago, every single one. So if you're getting inspired by something now and then you're making your song and it takes you a month and then you're putting it out 2 or 3 months from now, they're already on to like the next thing. So, I think if your music sounds like the people that you look up to and you're just trying to make a better version of that, then you better be the fucking best future-based producer ever.
Yeah.
The best, and look, house is timeless, but there's still wrinkles to it that people are, making it more unique and all that stuff. And I think, music's gotten really saturated, so there's not that much innovation right now. But I think to succinctly answer your question is that if you're not being innovative and you're not trying to kind of deliberately be weird and be different, and you're just trying to make the best version of, the best song out there of a version that's been popular for a little bit, you're probably behind.
So in your eyes, like, what is next up?
Yeah.
Genre-wise?
I mean, it feels like we're in like the hard groove era, like Nghtmre and Interplanetary Criminals and stuff like that. I would love to sit here and say like, disco's next, and there'll be a bunch of people coming up behind like Purple Disco Machine. I would love to say that, drum and bass and the chase and status and worship wave is like here to stay, and we'll see a bunch of American drum and bass acts. I'm not so positive about that. But I would definitely say that the immediate future is high BPM stuff. I think hard techno is creating its kind of corner of the main stages right now that used to be supplied by dubstep. Hard techno to me is just hard style, frankly.
Yeah.
I think,
Thank you.
I think,
Thank you.
I mean, everything is hard groove is just trance. So, it is what it is, but it's also a new wrinkle on all
Sure.
this stuff. So, I think we're going to see hard techno be a mainstay for a while. I think we're going to see, house music, instead of being at 128, is going to be at 135 now. I think that, when you say all this fast stuff, there is something classical about 125 and 128 that people will come back to if they can make it unique. I don't think any one genre ever dominates. I think what we're seeing now is that there's just in between genres, instead of having, dubstep and progressive house, EDM and house and techno stages. Now we have hard groove stages, and you have hard techno stages and hard style, and the headhunters of the world and the coons and stuff like that is gonna like pop up more because it's just like hard music. And I feel like the progressive house that's coming out now, unfortunately, no disrespect to a lot of people, it hasn't really like advanced. So I'd like to see like that wrinkle, but what we're seeing with progressive house is that it's so euphoric and so sticky that the people who are still doing it at the highest level can still grow. Like Alesso and Audien on our roster is like on a fucking tear right now because his music is just so objectively incredible, and does progressive house like need a wrinkle to survive? I don't think so. It feels like it's having a revival, sounding very similar to than it was. And then we go back to like the Lego analogy, like how much more in the everything's a remix analogy, like how much, as I'm challenging everybody at home to like create the next thing, it's just not that fucking easy.
Yeah.
So would you? What's your take on producers putting out multiple genres or sticking to one genre? Like, what do you recommend?
I recommend the Skrillex model. If you're putting out a dubstep song and then a hard techno song the next month, you're probably confusing your audience. Do what Skrillex did. Dubstep for 5 years. Jack U pop for 5 years. UKG for 5 years. Like very
Seasons.
Yeah, like seasons. Like establish yourself as something. John Summit made house music for a fucking decade before he dropped a drum and bass tune with Sub Focus. You know what I mean? And like, yes, once you're completely established and everyone knows exactly what you are and you've climbed that mountain, then you can go to the next genre. I do not subscribe to artists making multiple genres all the time. And all you have to do is don't like not make that genre because, you know, a different genre, because that gets people out of their head. And sometimes it helps them, you know, figure out something else. They use one little tiny element and they use it on the original genre.
They're learning from it or whatever.
Just put that song in your library and release it, freshen it up, and release it in 5 years when you do that. And so you're making a house tune, you're like, oh man, I really love drum and bass. And it's like, all right, make a drum and bass song, but fucking stash it and put out 12 songs that are telling your house story. And then after you've done that for a year and a half or 2 years, all right, and then every once in a while in between those, you're making the drum and bass EP that you love. Okay, stash that. And then, all right, now you're gonna pivot and you're gonna do your drum and bass era, and then put out the drum and bass songs that you've been working on for the last 5 years. Because remember, it's all about telling a story. And if your story is, you know, I'm a house guy today and I'm a dubstep guy tomorrow, it becomes very hard. Another theory that I use is, I call it the cafeteria theory. Excuse me.
Ooh, this is interesting.
The cafeteria theory. So you want to be able to go to the sophomore in high school needs to be able to go to the cafeteria and said, I found this dubstep artist who sounds like Nghtmre but better, and everything that he does is like a superhero themed.
Right.
And you need to be able to describe everything that you're doing in 12 words. And if you cannot describe your brand in less than 15 words right now, you're doing it wrong. And I hear so many kids, I'm like, yo, like, what are you about? And they send me like 9 paragraphs, and then I'm this, and then I'm this, but I'm also this, and then I'm this, blah, 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 blah. That's great when you're on year 10. The onion should be like fully peeled, and we should know so much about you. But in the beginning, if you're just trying to make a name for yourself, you have to be able to be sellable to your buddy in literally 30 seconds. It's the elevator pitch, the Diddy pitch, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
You should be able to say, like, you're selling a fucking app. You know what? I'm doing a dating app, but it's just for people who like Star Wars. It's like, all right, great. It's simple. Right. There's the market share on this is that, and you know what? There was already an app for people who like movies, but this is just going to narrow the niche, but it's going to make people more excited about it because it's less broad. Like, you know, as the like investor in that like so-called app or whatever. So you should totally be able to sell what your project is. And if your project is, I'm this and I'm that, and sometimes I do house, but sometimes I do techno, and my colors are red and black and green, but sometimes I do yellow and blue too. It's too much. What are you then? I don't know what you are. You're fucking mush.
Right.
Then.
It's got to be digestible and easy to.
Yeah, and then when you've been in the game for 15 years, you can be this hyper complex being who's put his hand on every single genre, and everyone knows like what your taste and your version of different things is, and that's totally fine. So it's not don't be multi-genre; it's just be one genre at a time.
Damn.
That's so. I love that. And you think it's a 5-year cycle or season?
It could be 2 year.
Okay.
It could be.
He does some sprinkles every now and again. He might do like a random. Song
it should
there,
be like 12 to 25 songs.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But if you're doing like one song this day, and then also there's another way to do it. Sometimes you can just be succinctly 2 things, and people know that they're gonna, and they should be like adjacent. Like Millennium is like future bass and dubstep. Like that's what like Slander is. Like Slander fully lives in 2 genres, but the genres are kind of
they
parallel.
Work. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like we're doing like hard techno and disco. You know what I mean? So, you know, if you're going to do house, then maybe you do a little tech house. Like that's fine. You're going to do progressive house, but you do a little bit of trance. That's fine too. You don't have to like strictly be like one thing. But as soon as you get past 3 and 4 genres, and if the 2 genres that you're working in don't kind of live in the same pocket, then you're telling less of a story and you're harder to sell. And I don't mean like for your manager. I mean, just imagine every single one of your fans out there is, I call them like the sneezers. Like they're all the time sneezing, and they're trying to get you to know shit, right? They're the kids that were on like Hype Machine back in the day, and that are every New Music Friday comes out, and they listen to every fucking song on New Music Friday, and then they take their 5 favorite songs to New Music Friday, and then they go to school and they say, yo, these are the dopest songs that just came out. They're the taste makers, and not even the taste makers, they're the taste spreaders. That's where the sneezing terms come from, because you're spreading like a sickness. So you want to have the sneezers on your team, and they need to be able to pitch you to their buds.
That's a great way to look at it. Do you I'm curious too, like, Will, just if your overall opinion is EDM still growing right now?
Bro,
or is it
absolutely.
Is it dying?
No.
Every day a kid goes to the raves and gets his wings.
So I feel
Rave wings.
Weekend, bro.
I feel like
every weekend, dude.
the buzz, like
a
me
raver
personally,
gets his wings every weekend.
the buzz of that excitement of 2012 EDM and 2014 with Hybrid Trap. And I don't. Maybe this has to do.
Bro,
with the
they just
oversaturation.
announced 2 weekends of EDC Las Vegas.
12 days.
12 days.
Wait, did they?
Yes,
They
bro.
did?
Yeah.
Are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
Maybe it's because
300,000 people wasn't enough.
Again.
I feel like the music is maybe what makes me feel. I mean, I'm not trying to say that I think it's dying or dead.
No,
but
you can just look
the
at the
music itself feels like it's not. I don't. Every
it's
time something comes
saturated.
out, yeah,
Shit's
it's
starting
so
to sound
saturated.
the same. That's the issue.
But there's still room. I'm asking for the people at home because like I feel like maybe they might feel like
no,
there's
it
not,
has never been harder for a music producer to break. Ever.
just because it's growing doesn't mean
It's-
that there's room for you to come out.
No, it's never been harder. It's never been harder. You better have a great story, and you better have a unique sound, and you better look like a fucking star. And if you're not that, then your simple music better be the stickiest, catchiest shit of all time. You better play it for your friend. If you don't have the vision and you don't have the look and all that stuff, then you better play a song for your mom and your sister and your cousin and your best friend in school, and they go, bro, send me this.
Right.
This is fucking crack music. This is addictive. I need to listen to this every single day for the rest of my life. Like that's the indicator.
That's so huge,
Great
dude.
advice.
So I love talking about kind of like the come up of producers. Let's say you find a producer, okay, or a artist that you like, you sign them to Prodigy. What's the first year look like in building them up?
What's this? How do you develop the strategy? How do you just?
Yeah, so first thing you do is you say what music you got. All right, great. You're living in a pocket.
How much music? How much music are you?
Yeah,
looking
like
for?
10 songs plus.
Okay.
Unreleased.
Unreleased.
Okay.
Yeah. 10 unreleased songs at least. All right, we're living in a pocket. All right, this is our best record. Some people like to start with their best record. I like to put it out last, personally, as long as it's like a little bit timeless and like won't, be, if it's like a dubstep song and the sound design won't be there in 10 months, then like, okay, I understand that. But all right, cool. All right, what's the first song? What's the second song? What's the third song? what order are we putting these out in? All right. After that, all right, what labels do each of these songs sound like? Oftentimes, you're living in a pocket. You're in the Black Book, No Experts pocket. You're in the Subsidia, Good Vibrations pocket. You're in the Night Mode pocket, whatever it is. Like, cool. All right, now underneath each song, we're going to write this label, this label, this label, this label, this label. This is the order that they're coming out. All right, now we're going to pitch it to those labels. Before we're going to pitch it to those labels, who's in our network? Who's going to play these songs out? Because before I pitch it to that label, this is a mistake a lot of kids make. So fucking hard. A&Rs are getting sent shit every single day, and they're just supposed to like your song better. No, make that shit undeniable. Say, I sent it to this person, even if it's just like a complete up-and-comer, someone who's just like 3 steps ahead of you, and you're getting $0 a show, and they're getting $1,200 a show, you know, and they're the smallest name on like a Subtronic show, or they're the smallest name on a Nghtmre show. They probably live in your town, or their DMs are open, and they're not big enough that they're like overwhelmed by everything, you know, and also just write out the list. That's the other thing you're going to do after you write out the labels. Write out every single DJ that would play your song. All right, just let a DM fly to them. Fuck it. Yo, I made it, and you can make a pack. Here, don't send them songs that they won't play. Here, I sent you a 3-song SoundCloud link of the 10, and I these sound like they would go in your set, and just let it fly. DM fucking 250 DJs and make that list, right? Oh, okay. 3 out of the 250 played it. Fucking great.
That's huge.
That's huge.
1%. That's what they say.
That's insane. Like, oh, you're a dubstep guy and you want to be on Good Vibrations, and fucking, you know, Trigger played it, or you know, Moody Good played it, or Nevjex played it. Whoever, right? Oh, they played it. All right, great. Oh shit, this kid's got 2 DJs playing his records out. There's some legitimacy to this, because they don't have to think anymore. They're like, oh, this has already been legitimized by someone that's performing live to some level of frequency, right? You know, preview it on your social media. Then you're going to figure out, what's my preview plan? What are my content buckets? All right, I'm going to do 1 video of me skateboarding on the beach. I'm going to do 1 video of me walking through, you know, a hill on a mountain. I'm going to do 1 video of me dancing in my studio. I'm going to do 1 video of me doing the car test. I'm going to do 1 video of me watching my parents react to it, whatever it may be. Like, everything I just said is free, literally.
Yeah.
Nothing. There's, you know, and look, if you can make it a little bit more like to the story, like, you know, doing it in like a bunch of different cars, like you call every single one of your friends that like has a dope car, and, you know, you play it and you're like, dude, today I'm in a BMW, tomorrow I'm in a Mercedes, like whatever. You don't even have to rent those cars. Maybe your friend just has one, and you know, whatever. There's 1,000 different ideas out there that you can come up with. All right, these are going to be my 5 content buckets. I'm going to preview the song on TikTok and Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. One of these went viral. One of these went semi-viral. I typically get 100 likes on a post. This one got 800 likes on a post, and it went outside of my network. Look, label, I have 800 likes on this post. I have 800 followers, and we know, you know, the ratio of how that is. That means it went past just the 10% of 5% of people who follow me that normally see it. So that means that it was a little bit more likable than, you know, just the 100 likes that I get, where my 800 fans, you know, 10%, you know, 8% of them saw it, 12% of them saw it, and they all liked it. Cool. And it's as simple as that. And then after that, you're going to do, all right, we put out these records, we're getting a little bit of traction. All right, I'm going to put all of my
wait, you're saying put the songs out. Is this post label?
Maybe the label signed them, maybe they didn't. Okay. Label doesn't sign it, cool. Just put the records out on DiscoKid with your content.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
No problem.
Cool.
You know, maybe they signed it, maybe they didn't. Cool.
Should
you
they
shot
give
your
it a
shot.
time? How much time should they give it to see if a label signs?
Wait 2 or 3 months for them to 2 or 3 weeks for them to
Sending
respond.
out all 10 to them, or
well,
one at a time?
All of this stuff is nuanced,
Okay.
right? Like,
Whatever's appropriate.
It just depends. Like,
Sure.
you know, are you getting support on all 10 records? Yeah, let all 10 fly. Do you feel like 3 of them are really good and 3 of them are not so good? Just send out the 3 that are good then, or whatever. But yes, be prepared to start releasing them. Don't wait for a label to like want your song or whatever. So just put the music out, and then once the music's out, and you're getting excuse me, you're getting a little traction, then you say, all right, I'm going to do a big show or a big quote unquote show in the city that I live in. All right, I'm going to call the bar. We're going to do Thursday because they don't need, or you're literally going to, or even if you can't, like you're not ready to, another piece of content you can do is you can play a DJ set in your kitchen.
Yeah.
Like, you guys know who Zulan is, obviously? Mm-mm. Zulan just played Coachella. She literally just put a GoPro and played fraternity basements, and she just had 15 good-looking college kids dancing behind her, and she just played her music and played DJ sets, and she had some swagger, and now she fucking plays Coachella.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's all you got to do. Put a GoPro on literally in your kitchen.
Yeah.
Set up some CDJs, or a controller or whatever in your kitchen, and call it the kitchen sessions. And then just every single Friday, invite your 15 friends to your house, get a fucking gallon of Captain Morgan's or whatever, a 16-pack, give them free. So I got the booze covered or whatever. Get them a little bit, give them a couple of drinks and have them fucking dance to your music, and then just post that all the time. You do that for an hour, you've got a month's worth of content on all those different clips.
There's a theme here, which is like, and I mean this like with the most respect, but like none of these ideas are even that good. You know what I'm saying? It's just to create content, which is good idea in
Literally,
itself. It's a good
100%.
idea to just, because I think people think like, oh, I
couldn't give them all the sick content.
Like I gotta,
pod.
Like
I gotta save that.
Dude,
come on.
It's like, oh, like you said, you're riding around on your skateboard at the beach playing your music. Like that's just like it's just simple. It's a very
look. If you want to do this level 2, really tell a great story and really pull everything together and really, and look, that's harder to do, and sometimes that costs a little bit of money, but there's also levels to this shit. I'm telling you not to like dance in front of your camera in the studio. Yeah. Maybe that's all you got right now. So fucking do that. That's
at least
fine.
It's one thing.
But just know that once you get a little bit past that level, you do have the vision, and you do know what your colors are and what your logo is and how your logo relates to the sound design, to the story that you're telling and what you stand for and the character on the archetype brand wheel that you are and all that shit,
So you got 3 or 4 songs that you put out.
So
you got content.
Then you want to do like your one headline show, and then you do a headline show in you do a headline show once a month or once every 6 weeks. You do a headline show in LA. All right, we're going to do the next headline show in San Diego a month later, and not try to do like, all right, we're going to do an 8-city tour because like I'm a little bit big now, and we're going to do 4 weeks of this, and we're going to do San Diego, LA, and then we're going to do San Francisco, Vancouver, and we're going to do Chicago and Milwaukee, and I'm going to just do one show every 6 weeks, put all your effort into it, make content around that show, tell the story of how you got started in this city. All right, you're doing San Diego next, tell a story of how, you rode on the train to go see Chris Lake, when you were 16 and you love tacos at this spot, and, you tell the story of what you know about that city or whatever and all that stuff. And then you do one city at a time, and then after that, then you combine them all at the end of that. You do that for a year, and then you go hit all those cities on a 4-weekend 8-show tour, and then you made it.
Okay, but Will, I just want to make music. I don't like putting myself out there. I just want.
Great, then become a music producer, not an artist. No problem. Simple as that.
I think that.
There's a whole industry.
There's a lot of work
that.
you gotta find. People think it's just making. It's like,
Oh
no, this
my
is a
God.
fucking a lot of work you gotta do,
Yo,
man. If you want to fucking do this, you gotta fucking go for it.
If you are not working 30, 40 hours a week on this, it's going to be very challenging. And everyone's like, well, I have a job and I have okay, cool. So that means you work 80 hours a week. Mm-hmm. The fuck? When I was just being a manager guy, I worked 80 hours a week. I woke up at 6 a.m. and went to sleep at 3 a.m. for 5 fucking years. Non-stop. It was so bad for my health. I didn't exercise. I smoked cigarettes. And I'm not saying like, you should also exercise. That was a mistake that I was making that I don't suggest that you make. I think you should also make sure that for an hour a day you're exercising, and that's really good for your endorphins and your creativity and your stress levels and all that stuff. So I would never ever say don't exercise, but be ready to not really take days off, your days off, you should be producing, because if you're doing this for 15 hours a week, everyone you're competing with is doing this as a full-time job.
Yep.
How are you going to catch up to the guys and girls that are doing this full-time when you're doing it part-time? It's not feasible unless you're just like a savant and you're just that damn good, which also happens.
Yep.
But really hard work will get you anywhere in any industry, anytime. That I am not the smartest. I'm pretty much a really hardworking guy who's good at networking, and that's what I'm good at. And the branding stuff and the marketing stuff and all this other game I'm spitting, it's because it was it was a thing that I learned over the years. But when I was 20 years old, I knew how to work harder than every single person around me. That's why I showed up to Dimmock and I was over-prepared and people thought I was a fucking weirdo. And that's why, you know, I did all the stuff that we did with Bixel Boys and the T-shirts and, you know, working at Lure and being a talent buyer while also managing. When I was talent buying and managing, it was the hardest years of my entire life. I literally had, you know, no real social life. I didn't go on dates with girls. I literally just grinded every single fucking day. And, you know, I'm telling you guys all this like shiny story. I worked for LED Presents Golden Voice for like 4 months during the end of my talent buying days. And they called me one time and they were like, yo, you're sending all of your offers at 3:00 in the morning. Like, what's going on? And they knew that like I had other projects going on when they hired me, so that was okay. And they were like, stop sending offers at 2 a.m., bro. Like, work on normal hour. If you've got to do your like management stuff, then do that at 2:00 in the morning. But I was being pulled by the manager stuff because I was passionate about it. And Johnny Shockey and Kevin Wiles, shout out my dudes, they literally supported me the day after. They pulled me into the Golden Voice offices in LA and they were like, here's your last paycheck. You're fired.
Damn.
You can't stop sending offers at 3:00 in the morning. And then the next day, they sent me a $10,000 for Nghtmre to play the New Year's Eve LED offer. And they put in the offer like, yo, we really love you and we think you're going to be an absolute fucking superstar. Not here.
Right.
But we think you're going to be a stud one day and we want to support you. And
that's so cool.
We want that was, dude, that was how much the commission on that was how much money I made from them in a month.
Wow.
So I was
hilarious.
like, all right, this is like my.
That's the best firing ever.
Didn't get a severance or anything like that, but that was my severance.
Nice.
Was, you know, and then obviously Ty got a crazy set time, and it was like a huge. It was the biggest fee that he had ever gotten at the time, and all that stuff. So, you know, I hope I highlighted my failures along the way, because one of the things, if you're gonna learn, you have to fail. So whether it was getting fired from Jake's fucking nightclub or, you know, getting fired from LED Presents / Golden Voice, or, you know, whatever it was along the way, like, I mean, getting fired from clients, you know, all those things, like, I learned from those mistakes and they all made me better. So, you know, failure is part of the process.
Absolutely.
I think something that I'm really taking away for the producers at home after what you just said is, you know, you're creating something tangible. You know, when you're driving to LA getting prepped for Dimmack, like, you did the research, you had paperwork, you had PDFs, you had the plan physically ready to go, and when you went there, you had the tangible, not just, yeah, I know exactly what you guys need. Let's do it. And then they're like, okay, well, what do you got? And it's like, boom, you got paperwork there.
Let me tell you a story. So we have this artist, Shima. She's Japanese American. She's making some of the best music, I think, at Prodigy. Her album in 2025 was absolutely amazing. She's played Coachella, E-Forest, Halloween. She just confirmed some other festivals that haven't announced yet. And when I first met her, she had a full presentation about everything that I'm talking about, character archetype, colors, themes, all that stuff. The first day I met her with no music out. She had, you know, she's Japanese and you know, she had like the cherry blossoms, and the name of her album was Shima Jima, which means Shima Island in Japanese, and all of her music had Japanese samples in it. And she was like, you know, and then she had a 12-song album done, and there was an intro to it and all that and she delivered it to me like, look, for kids out there, right? And I really mean kids, look at it like a school project. Mm-hmm. The school project is not just bunch of SoundCloud links and like, you know, hey, I'm really ready to like work hard. Literally create a fucking Microsoft PowerPoint presentation about what your brand is and everything that you want it to be, and it should be like 10, 15 pages long. And it should, and every single slide should have a song, and you should have all the visuals on like what, even if it's not like the exact and this is what I'm going to film. It should be like, this song's about love. So, you know, it's going to be one of the contents that we're going to do is like 2 people writing their names in chalk on the boardwalk, and Jimmy Hart, Tiffany, whatever. And like that, whatever it's going to be. And you should be able to say like, you know, this song's a story. So I'm going to try and tell the story through visuals and whatever. And her story is about, you know, the relationships she's had in the past. Like she has a song called Tour Guide, and it's about, she was living in Japan and all of these like foreigner men that traveled to Japan and that she met for like a week and a weekend. And that she fell in love with for like a week. And it's how she was the Japanese tour guide to all these people that came in and out of her life. And like for me, I lived in Mexico City. I lived in Florence. I had all these relationships that were like really powerful for like a month.
Yeah.
And then the person like disappeared, or I disappeared, you know? And so for me, I was like, wow, that shit really fucking hits me, you know? And you know, she had the story that she wanted to tell around all that stuff and whatever. So, you know, I think if, you know, we're going to get to like the Will submissions or the Prodigy submissions later, do that. Like send me your PowerPoint that says, this is who I am on the brand archetype wheel. This is what my color is. This is my secondary color is. This is the story that I want to tell. This is what I stand for. This is why I stand out, you know, as a persona. Like she's a very beautiful woman who has like a unique look. Her father's American, her mother's Japanese. You know, she in a lot of her like press shoots, she has like Japanese garb on and all that stuff. And so, you know, show me why you stand out. And, you know, if you want to get a face tag, get a face tag.
He's literally laying it out for you guys.
Yes.
Like, because people aren't going to tell you this, like, because I mean, in a way, I mean, you do want to find talent. I mean, that's we talked about, like why you're here. You're looking for talent.
Will at ProdigyArtists.com. We can go. I don't know how you want to structure that.
No, that's literally yeah. We have an idea what we want to do more with Will in the future, which we'll talk about more. But that specifically,
that's my email. Will at ProdigyArtists.com. Don't DM me on Instagram, but it's just my first and last name on Instagram, just because it's harder to keep track of. Anyone watching this right now is more than welcome to email me, but come correct. Come with you know, what I'm telling you guys to come with right now. Don't hit me with a SoundCloud link and say, listen to my jams. It's much deeper than that right now. I will, if you send me a PowerPoint presentation, I'll absolutely fucking look at it.
Damn.
And you need the music too. You obviously need the music too. And you want to tell me how the music fits in, and you want to, and open with your elevator pitch. The first line of the email should be 18 words. I'm this. I stand for this. I sound like this, and I'm better than this.
Yep.
Whatever. And then it can be followed by something that's more complex. If that opening line isn't that great, maybe I don't get to your PowerPoint, you know?
And make sure your fucking SoundCloud links work.
Yes.
For fuck's sake. That's the craziest thing is when people send a link, they don't check to make sure it's working.
Yeah.
I've done that too, though. I've literally done that a million times. Make sure that shit works.
Dude, this has been super inspiring,
bro.
enlightening.
Thank you, guys.
I really appreciate you coming on the show. Like, this is huge for the producer culture and community. And like, when we started this podcast, this is like what we wanted to tell everybody, and we want to help the community out and
learn too, bro. I've learned so much, bro. I can't wait to learn from you.
So
more.
huge, man. Thank you so much.
I mean, it's literally an honor to be here to like you guys said, to be the first music industry guy and non-producer to do this show that I've been watching for years, and to hang out with two legends for, I don't know, it's probably been like 7 hours. It feels like
It's been a minute, man. It's been
no,
fun.
it honestly,
we haven't peed. There's been no piss.
It honestly feels like it's been like 45 minutes because you've just been having such a great time. But I'm truly honored, and whatever you guys have for me next, I accept.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. Definitely got more plans with Will in the future, but make sure you guys hit him. And he just literally just gave you his email. Like he's gonna listen to it. Like he's literally gonna listen to if you have the do what he says.
Playbook.
But you're literally you're gonna they have a chance to send you music.
This is the free game episode.
That's right, the free game.
Excellent show.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment down below what's your favorite part of this podcast. What was a nug that you guys took away from this podcast? I want to know something that maybe you didn't think about that kind of blew your mind. And we'll see you guys in the next one.